Fair enough. Well, cheers, man.
Oh, this is awesome.
I really appreciate you being willing to come on. We've been talking for so long, and I think that we're lucky to learn from each other and hear what the journey's been like. And I really admire the work that you're doing in terms of just developing something that shares your passion. And so I'm wondering, can you just tell us about how you got into making leatherwork videos? Because I think that that's hopefully the path other people are willing to take, is just figuring out what they want to do and then just chasing it and making it a part-time thing and then letting that grow from there.
It's funny. It's something I never planned on getting into at all. It started kind of in the pandemic. I guess the pandemic started really February-ish, March-ish 2020. And so I went on Instagram and started looking at stuff then. And then I bought a pair of Red Wing leather boots, and then I really liked those. And then I was looking at nice leather wallets. I had a cheap one-off Wish, so one of the elastic band and metal plate ones.
Right.
And then I was looking at just guys making leather stuff, wallets, and that led to me looking at YouTube and then following. There's a ton of leather workers on Instagram, and I just started following them. And then I followed one guy who's actually out of Langley, so pretty close to here, and started talking with him. And then he kind of was showing me how easy it is to get into, and I just picked up there's leatherworking toolkits on Amazon for super cheap. I think $50.
Right.
And they're horrible tools, but they I still use a couple of them, but
they open the door.
Yeah, for sure. So I grabbed one of those, and then I grabbed some leather that was he calls it leather roulette, where you just pay a little bit of money and you get whatever he decides to send you. And he's actually out of Saskatchewan. So it's
all Canada.
I was trying to keep my stuff as local as I can. And so I got that, and then I just started. I meant to bring it, and I forgot, but I made just a horrible little crappy wallet. I think I ran out of thread twice while making it, and it's super janky looking. But it was the first thing I made, and then I just kept making stuff. My buddy kept helping me out, and it just kind of grew into something bigger than I thought, and it just started as a hobby. I was on paternity leave from work. I just had a kid, right. And then the COVID thing. So I would put her down for a nap, and then I would just make leather things.
Oh my gosh. Can you introduce yourself for people who might not know who you are and your YouTube channel?
Yeah. So I'm Tim. I run Black Flag Leather Goods. I just make small leather goods, wallets and bags, stuff like that. I started selling things online, and then it just kind of got too much with working a full-time job and having a kid and stuff. And then I started making YouTube videos, and that picked up steam. And it's not like I'm a huge YouTuber or something, but I'm coming up on 5,000 subscribers, and I get paid by YouTube. And so it's, I can kind of make what I want, and then make my money through videos. And I just make how-tos for new leatherworkers, how to make leather things.
Right. That's so interesting. Please try the Proper 12 by Mr. Conor McGregor.
Yeah, I'm excited for this.
I'm interested in your feedback, and I have McKellen, I think 12-year Scotch.
That's really good, actually. I really like the Irish whiskey. I was a Scotch purist for a long time, and then I think I started drinking Tullamore Dew, I think it was called, and that's really good too.
Oh, can you tell me, do you know the difference? My partner was just asking because the Macallan is Scotch and whiskey, and she's like, do they mix? How does that work?
Oh, I think for Scotch to be Scotch, it has to be from Scotland is the big thing. Is it a peated one? I don't know.
Not an expert.
Yeah, I think the most important part is that it has to be from Scotland.
Okay.
I don't know too much, but I know single malt whiskeys mean that it's so malt means that it's malted barley.
Right.
So I think that it means that it's toasted. I could be totally wrong. Someone's going to correct this.
Yeah, that's fine. Because I just enjoy the flavor, and I'm always surprised when people are like, I can drink 12 beers. It's I'd rather have something really good and that I'd only have to have a sip of and just enjoy the flavor.
Yeah. I think single means it has to be from one distillery,
Right.
and I think they can mix the years because they do like what they call like a Solera cask. So like if you have a 20-year whiskey, it might not all be 20 years. It could be, say, you make a whiskey, then the next year you cut it with the newest whiskey, and then the next year you keep cutting it. And I think the year is the oldest age of the whiskey in there.
Oh, interesting.
So, but I think that's still single, as in it's like made in the same distillery. But
Yeah, so it's all got the same type of quality.
yeah, but I'm no whiskey expert. I just like the stuff.
Fair enough. So when you were getting interested in leather, is there a reason that it was leather? Is there like, did you enjoy like the texture or like the rustic look of it? Because we're going to talk later about some of the people that you kind of admire in the YouTube space, in the making and communicating ideas. So what was it about leather that kind of made you go, this is worth hopping on Amazon, this is worth paying $50 and kind of going down this path?
I'm kind of an old school guy. Like I like all the like heritage stuff. And there was a few things I was looking at the same time, and leather was just sort of the most accessible. Like I was watching leatherworking videos on YouTube. I also like knife making. I love watching forging and knife making. It's amazing. And guys doing like Damascus blades or...
What are Damascus blades?
It's like a blade. I wish I had one. It's like a blade where you take a bunch of steel and like different carbon amounts of steel, and you fold them together, and then when they like heat it up and press it, you like press it a bunch of times in this big giant hammer thing they have, and then you fold it, and they keep doing that, and it makes this like crazy design in the blade, and that's super cool.
Interesting.
But I live in a townhome in Chilliwack. I don't have room for a forge and a power hammer and all that, and then so I was like, okay, well that's out. I also was looking at glass blowing, which is pretty cool.
That is.
It's super expensive.
What is the process of like glass blowing?
They take like you get big glass rods, and then they heat them up so they're pretty much molten, and then they just form them into cool things. Like they use it's essentially a big forge as well. And once it's molten, they have all kinds of tools to shape it, and then they can, like for a cup, they'll actually put a tube into it and blow air into it and make essentially like a molten glass bubble. And then they let it cool, and that's how they make glasses and like decorations and stuff like that. But
that's so interesting to me, because like you think about all the different like paths you can take in your life, and so many people seem stuck doing like a 9 to 5 that they're not passionate about. And like all you have to do is find something that kind of catches you. And I don't know if you've watched Harry Potter at all, but they have this idea in it of the golden snitch. And that's whatever it is that makes you interested in something. It's that thing that like pulls you forward and makes you go, I got to go check this out. I got to go start my own thing. I got to do something. And the whole character around Harry Potter is that he's the person who's really good at doing that, of figuring out what his passion is and trying to chase that forward and figuring out how he can make a difference and move in the right direction. And so I've enjoyed this podcast because I get to sit down with people and figure out what that crazy journey was to start something like leatherwork. Like some people are like, I've never thought about leatherwork in my life. And I think that that's so... there's reason to be optimistic about where we're going in the world, because you're able to do this and work another job and start to develop something you're excited about. So what was that early phase like for you? Were you like, I'm going to go all in, or was it just like, oh no, this is taking up all my time?
It was definitely like a dip your toe in the water kind of thing. And it takes a long time to even get half decent at it, especially like I'm not the most creative guy. This is probably the first creative thing I've ever done.
Right.
And so learning that took a lot of, like I said, the lead from the other leather business, he helped me a lot, even to the point of where I was like screwing stuff up. He would go on like a live video with me, and we'd like stitch something up together, and he would watch what I'm doing and be like, oh, that's wrong. This is what you're doing. But he's, I think he's been at it. I've been at it 2 years in July, and I think he's about 4 years, 5 years. I could be wrong, but he's pretty good, and he's selling a lot of stuff now.
Oh, so he's gone down that path. And maybe we can get into that. Like, you chose the path of what's called affiliate marketing, where you more just talk about other products you can purchase to get started.
Yeah.
But it sounds like he's chosen the path of actually making and selling the products. Can you walk us through what that, you went in that direction, and it sounds like you kind of went, that's probably not for me. And I think for people who are maybe interested in starting their own thing, starting their own YouTube channel, you can give some insights as to how you go about making that decision.
Yeah. It started, I had no plan on doing YouTube at all. I've always kind of wanted to do YouTube, but I didn't really kind of marry the two together yet. I just was doing the leather thing. And then when I got good enough to start selling them, I was like, oh, you can actually make it. It takes a long time to make a wallet. So like you can, if you're doing it by hand, you can make a decent amount of money on each one, although probably never are charging enough, I think, if you... It's
not scalable in that you can produce enough in order to have like I can relax and not have to be making things in the evening.
So like the first Christmas season in 2020, I had 30 wallets to make, and they're all like completely handmade, like cut out by hand. I use an X-Acto knife and hand stitched, and it was like a nightmare. I did get them all done. I finished them on Christmas Eve, the last two, and quickly got it out to the person. Luckily, she was in Chilliwack, but I had my wife down there kind of helping me where she could, and it was crazy. My daughter usually sleeps for about 3 hours or so on a nap, and it was every single day, like all 3 of those hours, and then sometimes like going into the night just trying to fulfill all of that. And that was kind of where I decided I was going to pull back a little bit.
Was it still fun in those days where you were like doing it? It would sound like it turned into a job. And I'm always interested in that like transition, because artists like Carrie Lynn Victor talked about how like when it starts to become work, when it starts to become like, it's not what you wanted to make, it's what somebody else wanted to make. So was that like, it became a job?
That's exactly what it was. It was when I had 30, and it was like 30 of like 3 different products. So it was like a whole bunch of the same ones. And then I was like, okay, well, this was supposed to be a hobby, and I was just selling them to kind of fund my next set of tools and stuff to keep doing it. And now I'm like, yeah, like you said, working a job. So that's kind of where I started pulling back. And then I'd also done like a few projects where I wasn't super into them, and then vowed never to make those things again. So then when I started YouTube, it was kind of a trial, and even though my early videos were like horrible, they started picking up steam, because I guess like even if the video production's horrible, if you put something out there that people like that helps someone, I think they can look past that. And so I started gaining subscribers, and then I was like, oh, I can move forward with this. I'm fortunate that I actually know a guy who manages a 2 million subscriber YouTube channel for his business. And so he was giving me some hints and tips and stuff like that, just saying this is what we did early on. And so I kind of took those and kept going, and then watched it scale, and then realized that, okay, this is probably something that I could make money at. And so I kind of just completely closed my books. Although I closed my books, and then I still somehow get orders. Some people still sweet talk me. So, but it's like a few things versus 30 right before Christmas.
Right.
So I don't mind doing that, especially if I'm like, oh, I want to buy this. Well, I can make an extra couple $100 if I put a few hours in on this one thing versus it feeling like a job. It's
interesting. So like my partner has been really supportive in terms of like when we started basically the same time, because I started March 2020 developing the idea of like what would a podcast look like.
Yeah.
It was June 2020 that I recorded my first episode, which was not great. But over that time, she's been supportive. After we're done this, she's the one who puts together the little clip of each person being like, hi, my name is this. She does like my Instagram now. I was terrible at Instagram. I didn't understand it. And she's taking on more and more. Yeah. It sounds like your wife was right there with you in the December time. What was that like to pitch this idea of doing leather work in your spare time and then having her come down and help you get out orders?
I think early on, I think she thought I was a little bit crazy, and it was definitely somewhat of a burden, because I started like on the kitchen table. And so I would like, for the first little bit of the paternity leave I was on, she was home too. And so I was like, had this out on the table or whatever. But then she went back to work eventually, and I was still off for another 2 months. And so she would come home and the table's covered in like random leatherworking crap and like a big like cowhide sitting there. and so I think she was getting a little frustrated with it. And then luckily we have an unfinished basement. So I just quickly made a little workbench and put it down there. But she's been good. She's been supportive. She hasn't been like doing my social media and stuff like that, but she's helped like with a lot of making of things, and definitely been supportive when I'm like, oh, I have to go down and film this weird thing, or I have to go, take pictures of this wallet and like, or if we're like out in public and I have like a pocket full of wallets, like putting them on stuff on like the rotary trail, like putting them on rocks and taking stupid pictures of wallets and stuff.
That's so cool. I think people underestimate like the behind the scenes, because like for the podcast for sure, people are like, oh, like you just sit down and record, and it's like you don't see like the like question development, you don't see like trying to figure out what microphone to use, you don't see any of that like process, and then me editing the night before I'm about to release it, making sure everything looks good, that like this is all on the side of my bed, like typing something out and editing. People don't see that, and so like there's something I think cool about being able to share that, of the crazy having a pocket full of wallets that people don't get to see, and they don't get to see the commitment, the drive to want to take good photos and share something that people are going to enjoy seeing.
Yeah. There's like a bunch of like weird impacts that you wouldn't, like even just looking weird in public when people are like watching you take pictures of dumb little challenge coins and crap, like. But
it's like they're sort of missing out, because if you don't have that passion where you're thinking of how to make this better or how to improve at something, it's almost like that's like where meaning is found, like where your things are worthwhile, and you start to get excited about your day, and you're like, oh yeah, sure, I have to go do this, I have to go grocery shopping, I have to do that crap, but afterwards, I get to do what I'm excited about, which is take that good photo, which is to go out here and try and angle this in this way, or how can I improve this? And reaching out to people who also have those passions, I think, is motivational, where I'm interested, what was that like for you? Was there any people who were like, what are you doing? You need to get back to work? Or was everybody pretty supportive?
I mean, honestly, everyone's been pretty supportive. I mean, I still work full time, so it's not like I'm abandoning everything for YouTube, although I do have the one buddy who's like, oh, you're going to go full-time YouTube at some point, and I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, but for me, everyone's been pretty supportive of it, and they'll make some jokes, influencer jokes or whatever, but I've had a good time doing what I'm doing, and I haven't taken too much flack about it yet.
That's good.
Yeah.
Where did you go after deciding not to? You've gone down the YouTube route. Can you walk us through what that sort of looks like, the early stages? Because like you don't think about, when you watch YouTube, you don't realize the work that needs to go into making a thumbnail, putting in a description, hashtags, like making sure everything is put together, that catchy line. I had no idea. I've been watching YouTube since, I guess, 2013 or something like that. Never realized the behind the scenes effort that goes into it.
Yeah, YouTube is a beast. It's hard to, like, you can listen to someone explain it and it's hard to understand it unless you are doing it, but like, kind of the biggest advice that pretty much every big YouTuber gives is just to start. But I feel like, I imagine you were the same way too. There's like this, before you start up, this like month or longer hesitation where you're like putting off doing it because you want it to be so perfect, and realistically you just need to like start and put out your crappy videos. And I think it's Roberto Blake that says you need to make 100 videos before you'll make a good one. Your first 100 videos are going to be crap, and that's the learning process. And so I kind of took that, and then I watch way too much YouTube and way too many of these YouTube educators, but I took that, and then Mr. Beast says just every video do one thing better than your previous video.
Yeah.
And so I just threw up my first horrible video and just started trying to improve one thing better, which early on was lighting was really bad for me. It's still not great, but I'm getting there. But lighting was bad. Trying to have some kind of personality on camera is bad. It's still not great.
I think it's really good. I think you know where you're taking this, and I think it's good.
But just things like that, like just critique your previous video and then do one thing better each video. They're not going to be a masterpiece. They're not going to be like cinematography like early on. You're not going to be Peter McKinnon in your first year. You need to start crappy and just work your way up, and that's the process on YouTube. Like, even like you said, the thumbnails and stuff. The thumbnails, the titles are arts in themselves. Like, these big YouTubers have staffers that they have a thumbnail guy, they have a title guy, and these people just sit and do just that thing.
I had no idea.
Yeah, not all of them, but some of them. A lot of people outsource to guys like people on Fiverr. There's like people on Fiverr that make just thumbnails, but it's the thumbnail's arguably more important than your video, because if you can have the best video, and if you have a crap thumbnail, no one's going to even click on your video.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges, and like developing something over time, because I think of like what my first iteration of the podcast logo looks like compared to now. Like, I think it looks way better, but I didn't know how bad it was when I started. And luckily my partner's interested in developing and improving on social media, and she did my whole rebrand. And I think it's important that you try and, like, I didn't have photos of the guest typically in my first like 50 interviews. Like, it's crazy. I've gone back and edited and put photos of them in, but to lack that and not realize how bad it was.
Yeah. But it's doing the one thing better. Like, you're noticing these. I like your new logo that you kind of kept it the same style as the old one, though, like the neon lights. Yeah,
it's all Rebecca. She came to me and she was like, "Yeah, we can update your logo. This is what I would do." And then I was like, "That looks so much better." Like, I can't believe.
Slick.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, so just developing something and then figuring out how to grow that into something that people are going to be excited about, because it's like you're trying to share your passion. And I think that that's something I struggled with early on, was like, nobody's going to care. And how do I don't want to push it on people. And then it's like, but you have to be your own champion for what you're working on. Mm-hmm. And you have to figure out how to do that. And I think just that rule of like improving one thing each time, I think that can be applied to like a lot of your life. Yeah, like exercise, going for runs, like doing a little bit more than you did the last time. When you're at work, doing a little bit more work than you did the last time. Like, just seeking to improve is just a good thing overall.
Oh yeah. It's that, like, I think a lot of people want like instant gratification now, instead of like having to work hard for something. Like, they just expect to be amazing at something off the bat, and that doesn't work with like anything, unless there's the odd like prodigy, but for most of us, it's the grind, right?
Yeah. So can you give us a behind the scenes of how, when you're developing a thumbnail, like, what's that process that you go through? Is it that because I've seen, we can talk about vidIQ, and what's the one you use?
I use TubeBuddy.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so like, there's these things that help you develop what's called SEO, which I always thought was just a nonsense word. And now I'm starting to realize it's not a nonsense word.
It kind of depends on what you want to do. Like, SEO is search engine optimization. And I think it's kind of something that's going out the window just in listening to a lot of podcasts. But where it is relevant is, say someone like looking on YouTube how to do something. I feel like the SEO is important for searchable content. Like, I want to know how to unplug a toilet or something. It's going to be good for that. I don't think it matters so much for someone that's like a really personality-based channel, like a vlog or something. I don't think it probably matters too much unless they're teaching you something specific in it.
Interesting.
But it's essentially, you want to take keywords, so like how to unplug a toilet, and then SEO would be making your description there kind of match those keywords. You want those keywords in it, and you basically want the machine to understand that this video is how to unplug a toilet.
Yeah, and you have to try and figure out a way to like get that across.
Yeah, it's super weird. But I've been listening to some stuff lately that's saying that the YouTube algorithm's so advanced now that it knows what your video's about. Like, when you put something up on YouTube, it reads all this text. It knows everything that's here. It knows who you are. It understands every single word you say. Like if you go turn your captions on, it's like 98% accurate just based on you talking. So it knows what your video's about, I'm pretty sure.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's freaky to think about.
It's kind of weird, yeah.
Because, like, would you say that then, like, in my 3-hour interviews, it's obviously got a transcript of that,
Yes.
but that it knows to, like, when people are searching for stuff, that it would find what's in my transcript?
100%, yeah.
That just blew my mind.
Yeah, I can't remember who it was. I was listening to, like, it was like a Nick Nimmin podcast or something, and he had a guest on, and he kind of is like a guy that's, like, trying to hack the YouTube algorithm, and he intentionally puts things like with text in his background just because he knows that YouTube's going to read it, like hashtags and just random stuff. And he changes it every episode because he thinks that makes a difference. Whether it does or not, I don't know. But
Just random text.
yeah, keywords and stuff.
Oh, wow. That's so interesting because, like, do you watch with captions? I can't watch without them anymore. Like, I feel like it all makes more sense when I can see them talking and I see the captions.
Yeah, and I'm one of those people that watches without any sound on for the most part.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that because it's at night and you make
It's sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I've done that as well, and I'm interested to see where podcasts go. Are you at all interested in that space?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am. I don't really. I love the idea. I don't really have a podcast topic,
Right.
other than like I wouldn't mind like just doing some dude chat BSing kind of podcast, but
Yeah.
I don't know how much interest is there. There's a lot of those.
Yeah, I think that there's like camaraderie. I was talking to Adam Gibson because I wouldn't mind doing something like a challenge where we like work out for a month and him and I compete with each other, but then we sit down each week and we do a podcast on like where our competition's at, and then we raise money for charity and try and donate it to a good cause. I was thinking of like, what if I ran to Hope and then we did like bowls of hope, like raise money for them because hope and hope. So I'm interested in like getting more into this. I feel like now I'm ready to take on different things and approach this differently, where this is still be about role models, but I want to do something else where it's like, it's more just trying and being athletic and trying to do different things with it. So I think that it's just important that people start to find something that they're excited about and then just start to chase that, like that bug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you finding your audiences? Is it more YouTube or more Spotify or the podcast platforms?
I would say that the podcast platforms predominantly. I can get really good numbers on YouTube, but like you get to know how many people are actually sitting through the whole 3-hour interview. And it's very rare that somebody's sitting through a whole 3-hour interview.
Yeah.
So the numbers look, I would say, better, but the real supporters, the people who are like, that interview really impacted me, like I learned so much from that, they're almost all podcast listeners. And so I think that you have a better retention rate with podcasts than with YouTube videos because people exit out or they forget about what they just learned. Mm-hmm. Where when I talk to somebody and they're like, yeah, I've been listening for 2 years now, it's like, what has that been like? And like, how have I changed to you? And like, what have you gotten out of it? Yeah. That's almost all podcasts. Most people who say, like, I listen on YouTube, it's like, yeah, I watch like 15 minutes, 20 minutes of it, and I haven't finished it yet. And it's like, you're never going to finish it. That's not how YouTube is.
Yeah, I could see that. Especially like for me, I do take in a lot of podcasts, and I do almost all of them while sitting in a car. So
yeah,
the podcast platforms make it easier to bring all that in.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge with that is I was on Buzzsprout, and the benefit to that is you get to put in keywords, but I switched over to Anchor, which is owned by Spotify, because they put my videos on there. And so people can watch the full interview. And so just for certain podcasts I enjoy, like Lex Friedman, I'm able to like see him talking to Elon Musk. And like there's certain parts of that interview where it's like I need to see what is going on.
Yeah.
And there's something super interesting about that. And so I'm an early adopter of that. I believe that that's hopefully the route we're going to go, because I think it's important that you're able to not only hear the person, but see how they're interacting. And that's going to give you the most information on whether or not they're like a good person, whether or not they're credible, whether or not they're reliable. And there's certain people I've had on where I'm like, this, and I'm looking at having on like politicians. And so I think it'll be important that we have a video element so you can see, is this guy 100%? Can we trust him?
Yeah.
And like decide for yourself. I don't have all the right answers. I'll just ask the questions the best I can, but you decide for yourself whether or not the person's good, bad, left, right, like whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's hopefully the route more podcasts go. I don't like Anchor's set up for how I get my numbers because they seem to count like if they count it differently than Buzzsprout is all I guess I can say. And so it's frustrating to try and figure out how many people are actually listening. And everything that I've heard is like Anchor is unreliable for getting your exact numbers, where Buzzsprout was more reliable, but they couldn't do video.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
How does it work monetizing a podcast? Like, obviously, if you're on YouTube, it's the same as anyone on YouTube. But for like Spotify, is it amount of time spent? Like if they come and listen, or is it solely based on sponsorships?
I would say you can go to like a sponsorship model on things like Anchor. I know Apple Podcasts has like a membership program that you can be a part of where they'll help you bring in listeners, but you have to pay like $15 a month or something to grow that. The route I've taken is just working with like great organizations that are more focused on the mission than like exactly how many people are listening. If you're working with somebody who's purely focused on like, I guess for me, like how many people are listening, then you're not really understanding why I'm doing this. Because the tough thing about what I'm doing is that there's not like one person I'm talking. It's not just leather where you're able to really hone in on a community of people. Yeah. It's like 1 week it's a beekeeper, the next week it's a biologist, the next week it's a farmer. Like it's too sporadic to get consistency and to develop a community the same way. And so hopefully all the sponsors that I've gotten on have been just supportive of the vision of like, this is important for the community's benefit.
Oh, that's a good point. It makes it hard to like do the YouTube like niche down thing then.
Yeah, that's why like I watch some of the VidQ stuff and I'm like, I can't hone in. And then they talk about like, you should talk about like a certain topic and like, oh, you can figure out like what's trending and what topics aren't being discussed. I can't help you there. I can't do that. So it's not an option. And so that's something I've been working on, trying to figure out how to communicate the message better. And with vidIQ's help, I have noticed increasing benefits to people just finding my videos on YouTube.
Yeah. Those guys have a really good podcast too.
Which?
The vidIQ guys.
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called.
Tube Talk, I think.
Okay, no, I was listening to a guy and he was just talking about it and he was like, this is the route to take. But I've been super inspired by your work because you've been figuring this out and you're like, I would say like 3 steps ahead of me in terms of like steps you're taking to improve. And so it's always inspirational to connect with you over Instagram and talk about where you're at and what you're working on. Can you tell us about where you're taking things?
I plan to just keep growing the YouTube channel. One of the things is I've found that I also really like doing YouTube. So like YouTube's kind of become as much of a hobby as leatherworking is. So now it's hard to like start up another YouTube channel, but I kind of want to start one just to do my own thing and see if I can grow that as well. At the same time, the leatherwork one makes money. So it's hard to kind of pick and choose where I'm going to go with that. But for the leather one, I just want to keep just growing it. I really want to, my goal has been to make like templates for people making leather things. Like, I just really want to make like intricate ones that people would charge money for and put them out for free, to be honest.
Right.
That brings me a lot of traffic, and I don't know, I feel some people just kind of overcharge for them. It is a lot of work to make these things, but I just like putting them out for free and helping people get started. And that's why I started the channel, and I don't want to stray too far from that, even if I am getting paid for it.
Right. Can you walk us through how the affiliate marketing works? Because I don't even know if the average person realizes how YouTube, how Amazon sort of work, and like the behind the scenes of, we hear about like you get, what is it called when you're like a partner with YouTube? But can you walk us through how that works and why somebody, if they're like, I love doing art, but I haven't considered doing it on YouTube. I keep telling people like, consider YouTube because it's scalable. It doesn't have the amount of hours you put in, you can wake up the next morning and have 10,000 views, and you were sleeping during it. So can you walk us through sort of how YouTube functions?
Yeah. So YouTube, to get into their partner program, you need 1,000 subscribers and you need 4,000 hours of watch time, which is like the amount of time people have actually spent on your videos. And that, I think it needs to be in the last year, but 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours watch time. And then they let you into, or you can apply to go into the YouTube partner program. I have heard of them denying people based on like, I don't know, sketchy content or controversial content. Basically, YouTube, like, they make money on advertisers, and so they want their content to be as advertiser friendly as possible, and they will kind of grade your content based on who would be a suitable advertiser on it. So some people don't get let into the program, or you might not have some of your videos able to be monetized for if you're using like copyrighted material, like music's a big one. But once you're in, they will put ads on your videos and you get a small cut of that. They're obviously bringing in a lot of money from the advertisers, and they will give you more money if you put those ads in front of more people. So you want a better video to bring in more viewers who will see their ads, and then you get paid more.
Right.
The other way I get paid, I actually get more money, and there's no like entry level. Like you can put these on your videos from your first video, as I do Amazon affiliates. And the way they work is pretty good. You show some products or whatever, and you will put like a link in your description, and it has like it's like a custom link to you. It has like a tracker. And once someone clicks on that link, for the next 24 hours, anything they buy on Amazon, you get a cut of.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So like you'll link, I don't know, I'm linking to small leatherworking tools and stuff like that, but I've seen, I think I had like a $1,000 camera bought and I got a cut of it and I didn't link to it at all. Like, and it's not a huge cut, but it adds up too.
And yeah, depending on how many views per video and how many clicks, that's it. Do you think that can be abused at all? Because now I'm just thinking, like, why wouldn't somebody just go click that link 24 hours, then they go place it? Or, like, is that...
And they could, but each individual sale is such a small cut that it wouldn't be viable at all.
Okay, so it's not scalable upwards.
Yeah, like, I think it's under 10%. Like,
right.
It's... Your friend it would have to be a good friend buying a lot of stuff to make you any money that way.
It just seems like it would be a good strategy of like, why not? Like there's an upside to you and they're supporting something good and they're going to buy the products anyways.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just in my mind, I was like, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, it would work. I would say like if you're buying something that you saw from someone on YouTube, I would say if you support that person, maybe go click their link and buy it and give them a little cut of it. Because it costs you nothing. Like as the person buying it, it costs you nothing extra.
Would they even know? Like, does the average person even realize?
Not at all. They are just literally Amazon links in your description. And you're like, hey, you should buy this if you want it. And Amazon shares their cut with you. You don't pay anything extra for it.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And so you like that route better than the other path?
I do. Like, I don't want my videos to be full of ads. I don't mind a few ads on there. Like, that's how I'm able to keep putting them out. But this way is kind of like offering up something to someone that you think they would like anyway, and they have a decision, like they can decide, oh, I'll buy that or I won't. But it really costs them nothing extra. It doesn't even cost them any time sitting waiting through a non-skippable ad or anything, right? They could be like, oh, that thing's cool, I want to buy it. Click on my link. Hey, I get an extra $1 that day. Like it's, I don't know, I like that model. The downside for it is there's a lot of crap on Amazon, and it's sometimes the stuff that I would want to recommend, I'll have to recommend from a site that I don't get affiliate sales from.
Oh, okay. Just to keep the authenticity.
Yeah, like there's obviously like the better tools and stuff that I use aren't on Amazon, and then I gotta just give them the link and not make any money on it. But
Yeah. That's interesting. And so where do you think that this is going to go over time? Do you hope to like eventually one day move away from your work, or are you happy just keeping it a part-time thing? Where does that come in for you?
I think I'm pretty happy keeping it a part-time thing. Like we said earlier, I don't really want it to turn into like a job.
Yeah.
I enjoy making leather things and I enjoy making YouTube videos. So I think if I stopped enjoying those, then I wouldn't be happy doing it in my free time.
Yeah.
Right now, especially with switching to YouTube, I can make whatever leather things I want, and then I can just kind of spin it into a video. Like it's nice where I'm not stuck making 30 of the same thing right before Christmas.
Yeah, that must have been a crazy experience. So what do you think for other people who are like, they maybe paint or they're working on something? Like, what would your advice be to somebody who's like, because like I've met people who are like, I want to be a personal trainer. And my mindset is like, that's great, but how can you monetize this on YouTube? And the reason I lean there is, again, because it's scalable. You don't have to be there all the time. And that's part of why I like podcasts is I like hit post and then I go and do the rest of my day, and people tune in and they listen and they're able to hear a good quality conversation. Maybe they're not getting that in their personal life. Maybe they're not getting the support they need. They can tune in, feel connected to a community, and then like have a better day. And so there's a benefit that I don't have to be there to do it. And so that's why I recommend, if you're doing personal training, if you like cooking, figure out a way to share that with people and show your passion through that route. So what would your thoughts be on somebody thinking of going down this path?
Everything. There's room for everything on YouTube. Like there's people on there vlogging their day going grocery shopping and making like a ton of views. Like if you have anything that you just want to share with people, just start making videos, especially personal training. That's huge on YouTube. But like, just if you think you have any kind of message you want to get out there, I would just start making videos. And if you don't make money on it, like if you don't ever learn the YouTube thing, but you enjoy doing it, then at least you found something you enjoy doing. If you affect a couple people positively, then at least you've done something. But it's a grind, but it's fun. And I think there's room for pretty much everyone on there.
I agree. And I think that there's just an opportunity to learn something about yourself through the process. What has that been like for you? Because you're talking about how you don't really have a personality. And I don't agree with you, because I think you just have like a style that's so, it's like fitting. You wouldn't want, I don't think I'd want somebody who's like, into, how did you describe it at the beginning of our conversation? You called it like your like old school, what did you call it?
Heritage.
Yeah, something like that. I don't think you'd want somebody who's like chatty or like too energetic. It's good that it's coming from like a source like yourself. So what has that been like for you? What have you learned about yourself through doing this?
I just don't have like this like energetic, I'm not naturally super energetic and bubbly. And I found that early on, I was having like a super monotone, like my first bad comment on YouTube was actually a good one. My first negative comment on YouTube was, I would rather watch toenails grow than watch you. And it was actually pretty funny, but I went back and watched the video, and dude was spot on. He was kind of a dick, but his message was accurate. And so that's the main thing I've been working on and found, is that I wasn't really putting the energy out there. Like, it's almost like you have to put out more on camera than you would in person.
Yeah.
And I do the bare minimum in person. So I've been kind of working on that, and that's a big struggle for me, is just being energetic and happy and bubbly on camera is not really who I am.
Yeah, I had my first negative comment was like, you're posting like way too much and not basically getting any response. And it was because I was trying to do the clips and the full interviews all together, and I was putting bare minimum into the thumbnails. And so it just looked, after he made the comment, I was like, I don't like that comment. And then I went back and looked, and I was like, yeah, this isn't good. Like, this needs to be addressed. And so I removed all the clips, created a separate clips channel. I really could care less about the clips channel, but the most common feedback I got was like, your videos are too long. I'm never going to sit through this. And so I was like, okay, I'll make a clips channel. I don't care about it. You can go watch it from there if you like. I'm going to focus on this because this is my favorite part of it.
Yeah.
And so now the clips are available. People can go watch them if they like, but I have no interest in continuing that or like trying to boost that or support that. It's mainly just trying to focus on the long form conversations because I think I think it's the solution to a lot of the problems we're having in our society in terms of the disconnect we feel with people. I feel like things are more polarized. I guess I don't just think that. I've had like historians on who are like, yeah, things are not great in our political dialogues right now. So I think that it's hopefully the solution. I've been bugging people about like, why don't we interview politicians on like podcasts? And then it was like, why aren't I? Like, it's 3 hours. I can talk to the person and figure out where they're at on certain issues. And so I hope that I can make a positive difference through this.
Yeah.
And share my passion for people because I find people like yourself incredibly interesting of like, how did you get started in this? Like, what is this like? And where do you hope to take this? And I think that all of those conversations are so inspiring to me because I would have never thought of leatherwork as my passion. But when I see you doing it and breaking it down and explaining each intricate part of the process, it's like, this is way more complicated than you realize. Like and I think we live in such a fast-paced society where we take for granted our clothing, our shoes, how it's made, what the process is, because we don't have to do it. And then we don't know anybody who does it. Yeah. And then we kind of forget that this is all a very complex system and that we should be grateful for it. Like even ordering like equipment, it's like it comes from Australia. Well, Australia during COVID was very difficult to get things to Canada. And like, again, you don't think about supply chains and those processes unless you're trying to do something outside of the norm.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you listen to that Joe Rogan podcast with Jocko Willink where he talks about the supply chain?
Yeah, of clothing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy, like the cost of the C-can, like 10xing since COVID to bring it across from China. It's crazy.
I think I find Jocko just so inspirational in that he's just a hardworking individual and he just doesn't take no for an answer and he tries to find a way. And I think that that's where we get stuck in so many political dialogues or in conversations with people. We get it needs to be this simple. And I think that we maybe aren't appreciating the value in the hard work that it's going to take to accomplish something and the value in that. And when he was talking to Joe Rogan and was like, yeah, like there is a way, like this is possible. The idea that you can't make something for less in America is just, that can't be true. And then he's proven it. He's proven it every step of the way. I think he makes pants now, shoes, like sweaters. He makes a whole line of clothing that's more affordable and like has more benefits to their economy than shipping it off to China.
Oh, absolutely. I brought you something.
Oh.
That. But I wanted to give it to you on camera, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know you're up-and-coming lawyer, right?
I am, yes. So that is the logo. I love it, if you can see that. I think that you've done a tremendous job on when each video starts. That
thank you.
Intro, I think it's like incomparable to other videos I watched.
So that intro, I literally paid $5 on like a website just to do it.
It's just, but even the sound effects, did it come with the sound effects? Because it was just so like,
it came,
I don't know how to describe it.
As is.
Okay, look at that. Look at just the what would you call that? I want to call it rope.
I think it's rope.
Okay,
twine.
We're going to call it rope.
My wife found that.
Found it like in the house or
found that it existed and then found some in the house, I think.
This is so cool though, because like everything lines up. Like the branding is real, guys. Oh my gosh. Okay, so walk me through how you made this. So what's the look at this.
So I kind of figured that you'd need a business card holder.
Yes, but it feels so.
Yeah, it'll soften up. So the leather is by Horween Leather, who I think they're one of only a couple tanneries left in the United States. Yeah. They're out of Chicago. They're probably my favorite leather, and it's like I could go on about leather like longer than my wife would like, but The Horween leather is probably my favorite.
Horween. What does that mean?
It's literally one of the founders' names.
Okay.
I think they started in 1905, I want to say, in Chicago. So they've been around over 100 years.
And sorry, can we just double check? What is leather made out of?
It can be made out of any kind of animal skin. That one's cow.
Interesting. And so is there preferences I'm sure there is in the leather community of like this feels so different than, I think my phone case is hypothetical leather.
Yeah, probably. There's a whole bunch of different grades of leather and it can be like any kind of animal. So this is, I can't really remember the exact leather that is, but that'll be vegetable tanned leather by Horween.
Right.
There's generally two types of tannages. There's vegetable and chrome tanned leather. Okay. Vegetable tanned leather is the more natural. They make a liquid that I think they call it liquor, and it's just made with like oils and saps and leaves and all kinds of their proprietary liquor that they soak it in to tan it. It takes anywhere, I think it takes from a month to 3 months to tan leather that way. It's generally more expensive, but it's a higher quality product.
Right.
Whereas the other one's chrome tanned leather, which is tanned with chromium salts, and it takes under a week. It's really fast. It makes, I wouldn't say it's worse leather. It's different though.
Okay.
It's generally softer. It's generally more weatherproof. A lot of people don't like I think there's some pollutant issues with the chrome tanning process. I think it's gotten a lot better, but there's zero polluting issues with the vegetable tan leather. And
this is the vegetable tan?
That's the vegetable tan.
This is so cool.
So that's a bit stiffer. The chrome tan is a bit softer. The chrome tan's a little more weather resistant. The veg tan soaks up water and anything like crazy. So they have their places. But.
Okay. So this is your preferred?
Yeah, for most things. I do have some chrome tan leather at home just for like, it's good for bags and stuff like that.
Do you have a lot of like clothing that you wear and like stuff that you have now as a consequence that you wear that is leather? Is it more than the average person?
Clothing wise, I don't. I do have a lot of leather boots now. And actually, after seeing all the Horween, my wife actually got, there's a boot brand called Thursday Boots they're New York. And they make a Horween pair of boots. So my wife has Horween boots by Thursday now, and they're gorgeous. They're really nice boots.
Interesting. Is it made out of this or the...
It's something similar to that. I think there's like, in tannages of leather, there's chrome tan and there's vegetable tan, and then there's like a million things in between. So,
right.
So Horween has their fancy one they call Chrome XL, which is kind of a hybrid of the two.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so how do you go about, like, how does this come? When you purchase like a large quantity, what is that process?
I can show you pictures, but it comes as, I get them as half sides. So just think a side of cow. So they take the skin off as a full cow and split it down the middle and sell them as sides usually.
What is the delivery process for this?
It rolls up nicely, so it's just like a long cardboard box.
Okay.
Yeah, I get them shipped from Saskatchewan from a supplier called OA Leather Supplies, and that guy's awesome. It's expensive, but less expensive than you'd think probably to buy a whole side of leather.
Yeah,
I think the Horween's about $300 Canadian per side. So, but it's like cows are big animals. It's like 20 square feet of leather, right?
Yeah. And then, so what is the process to turn it into something like this? What is the journey? Do you like have a plan when you're purchasing where you're like, this is what I want to use it for? Or is it just like, I'm going to get it and we'll figure it out?
It's kind of half and half. Like sometimes they'll release something that looks pretty cool. And then you're like, oh, I just need that for something. We'll find a place for it later. But I kind of like the like old school looking stuff. So I've mainly like browns and blacks, and I just wanted to have the like heritage looking style. I don't want anything too flashy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do they come in all colors? Because this inside, like this looks more, I would say like cork I don't know how to describe it properly, but I would say it's more cork. And then the outside, just like, what is the process to like stitch this? Because it takes a lot of detail.
Yeah, so it starts with just like a sheet of leather. I have like templates that I've made. You can download and buy free templates. Like I give my templates out for free, so other people do my templates. I like to make my own. That's kind of part of the whole thing to me. So I try not to make other people's, but I just put for that. I printed out a thing, put it down on the leather. I tape it down, cut out the shape.
Print just in a regular printer?
Yeah, just print it out. I do actually have a 3D printer, and I print out some templates that I can use over and over again.
Right. And
that you would just like hold them down, and then you have like it's called an awl, and it's just like a pointed tool, and you just scratch it out, and then. But that I printed out on paper and just put it on top, and then just cut it out, and it's exactly what you think. You cut it out. Glue the pieces on top, and then you just make a stitching line and stitch it up.
But you also have like an emblem for people who...
Oh, yeah.
Which is a black leather flag.
I do. That's actually... So one of the things that I tried to do is I first try to support anything like local or Canadian.
Right.
When I source my leather comes from Saskatchewan, and anything I can get locally, I do. There's also another good leather store in North Van called Lonsdale. But after that, I try to support small guys. So that stamp is actually a guy that I met on Instagram out of Russia, and he was making all kinds of brass, like leather stamps. He also makes like custom etched coins and buttons and stuff like that. So I was talking to him, and then I had him do that one up for me and send it over. So that's just like a dude in his basement with like a little CNC machine making leather stamps, and I thought that was pretty cool.
How does it work? Do you just do you have to heat it up? What is the process?
So again, there's like differences. So if you have the chrome tan leather, then yeah, you probably have to heat it up because it won't take. It's kind of like leather's kind of like a sponge. The chrome tan leather is like a dry sponge, and the veg tan is a little bit moister.
Right.
So with that one, if you just imprinted it on chrome tan, it would just bounce back out. But if you heated it up, it would stay.
Right. On
the vegetable tan leather, you just like that. You just get it wet a little bit and then stamp it. Some guys hit it with a hammer. it's an arbor press for setting ball bearings. And
I don't know what that is.
It's just like a 2-ton press, and it has a lever, and you just
push down.
You just pull the lever, and it puts some force into it and imprints it. Yeah.
That's so crazy to my brain. And so how does leather work? Because I've heard things that like it gets stronger or it gets better over time.
Yeah. How does the patina?
Is that what it's called?
Yeah. So it's like I said, it's kind of like a sponge. So it absorbs everything, oils from your skin, so it kind of like develops its own unique look over time.
Right.
It'll I know it feels pretty stiff now. It'll soften up good too, but yeah, it just kind of changes. That should outlast you. Like it's the way it's stitched up, like the stitching method is called a saddle stitch. That's how you put a saddle together. No way. So, I mean, for a wallet, that you should be able to like pass that on to your kids at some point if you wanted. Like it shouldn't die. Like some of these leather things last like 100 years. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I really appreciate this. This is so unique. I have a card holder that's made out of metal. It's crap. It's got it off of Amazon for like $8.
I think I have one of those.
Yeah. And so it's so unique to have something like this, and I'm definitely going to rep it and be very proud to make videos with it and be proud to own something made by somebody in our community who found his passion and is choosing to share it. What else do you enjoy making? Like, what are things that are on your radar that you enjoy sharing with people?
I really like the wallets. I've made, what have I been making recently? I've been making like a longer wallet, almost like a girl's clutch kind of thing. That's kind of fun to make. I have like, I'm trying to, like I said, I like to do my own designs. So I'm trying to design a duffel bag for myself.
Like a gym bag?
Yeah, sort of. Like a big, I don't know what you would call it, but like an old school, like just a big cylindrical kind of thing. Almost like maybe like a military duffel kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, like making just anything like old school, man.
So when you're making it, is it usually just for yourself, or do you have like a purpose for it? How do you go about deciding what's going to be next in terms of like what makes sense, or do you just have like a lot of leather wallets at home?
I do. I have a drawer full of them, in different like levels of quality, like starting from my first ones I've made. Actually, I have the first wallet I made is on a YouTube set up on the wall.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I keep it there. I was going to get like I think I might get a shadow box thing to put it in. Yeah. But I pretty much just kind of think of what I want to make. I usually make a prototype, which involves like a lot of just, I have a roll of leather that was pretty cheap from another local leather place called Tandy. But it's like cheap, not greatest quality leather that I kind of use for like prototyping. And I just make measurements on it, cut something out. And then as long as I keep track on paper of all my measurements, then I can put it into, I use Inkscape, which is like Adobe Illustrator. Yeah. And then I can make a template after the fact. And then I will print that and make kind of the finished copy of it. So I usually end up with like 4 each template, probably at least 3 products per one, like one really bad one in the crappy leather, and then one that I've made like the first version after making the template, and then the final one from doing the YouTube video with it. Right. And then it's kind of a mixed bag. I've given some away. I've sold a couple of them online, or sometimes I kind of cater my videos to who has a birthday coming up.
That's a good idea.
So yeah, like my family gets a lot of leather goods as birthday presents.
I think that that's like a good way to go though, because you're like, you could look at it like you're just selling like what you make, but to me it's like you're showing your passion for something, and I think we need to do a better job of appreciating that, of like somebody's putting in like a lot of work to learn something. Like you're talking about the process of like going on Adobe to like actually using like a first kind of project to actually developing the final. That's a lot of work. And so if you respect your time, if you appreciate the time you're putting into it, then that is far more effort than going to Save On Foods and buying like a box of chocolates. Yeah. Like that's way more thoughtful to go through that process. And I think sometimes it's easy to simplify and think like, because people have made like jewelry or like certain items for me, and I go like, I really appreciate this more because I understand the work that you had to put into to make something like this. Whereas I think we get stuck kind of like, oh, well, you're already making this stuff, so it must be super easy. And it's like, it's not easy. And they're showing you the passion. And something like this, as you said, is going to last a really long time. And I can't go to the store and buy the exact same thing somewhere. This is not like replicatable in that way. And I think that that's really inspirational. And I wonder how you feel. Do you think we're going in the right direction when we're talking about like buying local? Because I hear that more, and then Amazon being the biggest company in like the world right now, like we go back and forth between the two.
It's a tough, there has to be some balance, I think, because like you have to live within your means too. So buying local just isn't always feasible. Like if you're buying local, you're paying more, to be honest, and your money's going somewhere better probably, but there has to be some balance there. Like, is everybody going to go buy like a couple $100 like fancy leather wallet when you can make do with an elastic band? Like you just have cards now for the most part. Yeah. So I don't know. I like to buy local when I can, but I don't feel bad if I don't. It's some things. Amazon subscriptions have changed my life, man. Like,
I couldn't agree more. I think we underestimate, and like that's where I think I get weird about like people being so mad at corporations, is because at the end of the day, there's a lot of benefits. Oh yeah. And I think we like to, I don't know, it's like we almost ignore the benefits and then we just talk bad about corporations. A lot of people don't like Jeff Bezos, but it's like, you think about what he did. Like his whole process for developing Amazon was, his mindset was like, if we don't do this ourselves, then like we need to bring it in-house and we need to do it better than the competition. And he did that forever. Like he bought Ring, and Ring was like a better tool for him building Amazon. And it was a tool for him to continue his main goal. And so everything he did was in addition to it. And that strategy has paid dividends that we can't even like quantify. Like the guy's worth like getting close to $1 trillion. Like this person's very successful because they had a strategy that they stuck to. He wasn't just like a bad guy.
Yeah. I think people don't like people that make a lot of money is what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if you like Elon Musk, I feel like he deserves every single penny that he has.
I agree.
Everything he does is amazing.
Yeah.
And
he's brave. Like I find him to be one of the most courageous, like, and you can disagree. Like I was talking to my partner about this last night. It's crazy how often we have to say, I don't agree with everything he says. Like I hear that so often now, and it's like, whenever do you agree with something 100% of what somebody says? Like at the end of the day, we have different perspectives, and that's supposed to make an interesting conversation. It doesn't like remove that. It's been challenging because I've had people on who I know lean left and I know lean right, and I see the value in both viewpoints. But I've had people on one side go, I can't believe you interviewed that person. And then people from the other side go, I can't believe you spoke to that person and I had to unfriend you on Facebook for that. And it's like, I'm having on both perspectives. I believe both are necessary and both have a role to play in our society.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to me that but I think you're right about the people do not like rich people.
No. But you don't have to like agree with everything that everyone says. Like the tribalism thing where people get all amped up because someone doesn't agree with them. Like you and I should be able to disagree on absolutely everything and sit in this room and have a totally civil conversation. Like it shouldn't matter. I
couldn't agree more. I think that one of the interesting things that you're sort of seeing though is like people are envious. And I think that's why I was interested when I asked about like, do you find people are supportive? Because I feel like the majority of people are supportive, but there are a few people I've come across who've been like, yeah, that's pretty cool. And you can see in their demeanor that there's a part of them was like, you shouldn't be doing that. You should be going back to your job and you should play it safe and you should do it how I did it, or you should do it how I think you should have done it. And like, there's this feeling of like, you shouldn't figure out what your passion is. And it was Camden Hutchison, who was a law professor that I had on, and he was talking about how we live in a monoculture. And I was thinking about that in comparison to the States, because they have a huge right-left kind of imbalance. But in Canada, it's like you just go along. You toe whatever the party line is or whatever the common view is. And if you pop your head up a little bit, you're way more likely on all sides to get attacked than anything else. And I think that's really interesting because it's like we don't want anyone to stand out too much. And I think that's really unfortunate because we're all going to shine in different ways. And you see Elon, it's like that person is not, like, I don't agree with how he lives his life in a lot of ways, but I didn't make Tesla, so I cannot complain or think that I could have done it better with my kind of mindset.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. He's kind of out there. Well, he's definitely out there. But the dude's amazing, and his intentions, from what I see here, are positive.
Do you have any thoughts on what's going on with him in Twitter and what he's trying to do there? Have you been keeping up with
I don't know what he's doing with Twitter.
Have you not heard anything about it?
No.
Oh, he bought 9.2% of Twitter, and then he was going to go on to their board of directors, and the board of directors was going to invite him on, but then he realized that he was not going to be able to have the same attitude. He wasn't able to voice himself the same way, and so instead he's decided to try and just take over Twitter. And so he gave Twitter an offer of, I want to say $40 or $50 billion just to buy all of Twitter. And so now Twitter has taken what's called a poison pill, which means they're going to dilute their shares for, make it more affordable for their other shareholders to buy shares to reduce Elon's stake in Twitter because they don't want Elon to take it over. And then I want to say it's Goldman Sachs or there's another company that's working on potentially trying to outbid Elon for owning all of Twitter.
That's interesting.
So there's crazy war going on right now over the ownership of Twitter and how it's managed and stuff.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so it's interesting to see somebody who just pulls the trigger on things. Like we don't usually things whenever we think of like getting something done in the city, in the provincial government, federal government, it's like, okay, well, we're going to have a subcommittee that deals with this, and then it's going to go to the committee, then it's going to go to the head committee, then it's going to be heard by the prime minister or something like that. Elon's like, I'm going to buy Twitter.
Yeah, just like on a whim.
Yeah.
If anyone could, it would be him.
Yeah, have you heard of the PBD podcast or Valuetainment at all?
No. Okay,
he was on Joe Rogan, and I find him really interesting because he's sort of in this field. I enjoy business, I enjoy law, I enjoy hearing about like the bee podcast was really like I interviewed Paul Van Westendorp, and we talk about bees for like 3 hours.
That's cool.
And it was super crazy because I didn't realize that like bumblebees, they're thicker so that they can get pollen and stuff. I'm going off track, but going back to my point is there's this guy Patrick David Bett, I think, and he does this podcast on business. He interviews various people, and one of the people he was talking to, he was like, he thinks that Elon is eventually going to try and take over Twitter, and then he's probably going to try and buy something like CNN, and he's going to move out of Tesla and move into the entertainment. And it was just a super interesting idea that Elon would go that direction.
Yeah. Well, he's even said that he does almost nothing in the day-to-day operations of Tesla anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's run for him. Like he said a few times that he wants to move on to something else.
But he has like the Boring Company. He has, what is it, the Neuralink?
The Neuralink thing's exciting. I've been following that.
Oh, no. Okay, tell me about that, because you probably know more than I. I just know that you plug something in the back of your head.
Yeah, so I know that he wants to start by making it like a medical device. He claims that he'll be able to cure a lot of like spinal cord based paralysis by like, I don't know, somehow reconnecting everything. So they're starting medically. He also says that it should be able, if it works the way they think, it should be able to cure Alzheimer's. Once they kind of move past all of that, I think they're hoping then to make it like available to everybody. It should be able to improve like memory, and he said like right down to the point where you could like technically like live forever. Like you could download yourself and re-upload yourself, and then you get into some serious ethical grounds there. But yeah, it's, I don't know, pretty exciting. I'm excited to see where he goes. He says there should be some implementation of it within the next 10 years, he figures. So
yeah, I'm always skeptical of Elon's timelines, because what did he say about the Roadster? He said he was going to have like that shipped out a few years ago now, and we still don't have a Roadster. Exactly. Or the Cybertruck, which is super interesting. I'd buy one of those Cybertrucks.
I have a buddy who bought the, like has a spot in line. Actually, my leather buddy from Langley, he has he paid the deposit on it. So.
Oh my gosh, because it wasn't that much, was it? It was like a couple $100s. Like it wasn't like...
It's a couple $100, but it's non-refundable, so it's brilliant startup cash for him.
Yeah.
Because you just pay him that money, and then right off the bat, he has all this cash to do with whatever with it.
That was the other thing I just heard about him doing as well, which was he's trying to create another class of shares to raise more money for Tesla, because it seems like the big problem they're having now is that the other car companies are starting to catch up to them, and they're starting to develop, like I think it was just Volvo. It looks just like the Tesla, the Tesla SUV.
Yeah,
just Volvo. And so they're catching up, and their manufacturing speeds are far better than Tesla's, because Tesla started from nothing to being a car manufacturer. And I think they're shipping out like 1 million Teslas, which is really good. But when you think of all the other car manufacturers, they've caught up, and they're going to start beating out Tesla.
Oh, yeah.
And so he needs to raise more money so he can start making more Teslas. And that was one of the strategies. And so people are frustrated because he's not creating the value, he's just creating more shares. And so there's a distrust in that you're not, share value should be based on what you're producing. You're making more of something. You're creating a better benefit.
Yeah.
And the argument with Elon is that he's pushed up the price of the Tesla stock just by creating more shares of it, not by creating more value. The counterpoint would be like, how do you value something like Tesla? Like it's not, like you can't just say that it's worth this, it's what the market's willing to pay. And so that's somewhat arbitrary in the sense that if people are willing to pay, then it's worth that amount based on the market's response. And then you get into a whole discussion of how complex capitalism is and how these class structures work. But those are the things I find really interesting, is when there's like strategies and there's opportunities for growth. And when somebody sets that kind of example, it's just, I can't disagree with the final outcome of like, you've built something like Tesla that's pushed car manufacturers who said they weren't going to go electric, that they were hesitant and hybrid cars were kind of the move. And he just disproved all of that, and that he's made Tesla's vehicles more safe. I don't know if you know about all the doodads in there, but like he was explaining in one interview that if you get hit by a car in a Tesla now, basically it's safer not to wear a seatbelt.
I heard that.
And that like the airbag system will know where you are and will like react better than a seatbelt would just keep you in the seat.
Yeah. That's yeah, I heard that too. It was crazy. I probably still keep putting my seatbelt on, but
yeah, for sure. It's just crazy to think about with those type of people, and the fact that they just put in a lot of work over time and stayed true to their values. Like, I think that's the example. He's like, if you want to draw something from what he did, it's to figure out what it is for you and just stay true to it and don't waver. Just keep going, because he's been really good at not listening to naysayers.
Yeah. Well, like if he's being genuine, like what he said was the whole purpose of Tesla was not to make this huge, like the biggest electric car company. It was to kind of force the hand of everybody else to start making electric cars. And if that's truly what he was aiming to do, he's done it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same with going to Mars, is that like his point isn't that like Mars is cool, it's that we just need a plan B for this planet. And it's been really interesting because my partner leans towards like, let's just fix the planet. And I totally hear all of those arguments of like, let's stop destroying forests, let's stop I don't know if you, I interviewed Lee Harding, and he talks about how we just literally shoot wolves from planes and then just fly away. It's like, there's got to be a better way to reduce wolf populations than just machine gunning them from like helicopter. Like, I can't imagine being the person there and like doing that to an animal and then just flying away. Like, I feel like you have to like do something to your soul in order to be willing to do that.
But they do the same thing with the wild pigs in the southern U.S.
Yeah.
Where they're feral there.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
They're like rampant there, though.
They are, yeah.
Like
it's worse than the wolves here.
Yeah, it's like the wolves are like a problem, but like we could send up some people that would bring them back down to a manageable amount. Like, I don't know. I don't think that that's the best path. But when I hear the argument for fixing things here, but we do need a plan B. Like there was one interview where they were talking about how many meteors go past Earth every year, and it's like a lot that could hit us that we have no plan to prevent, that we don't even know sometimes they're coming. If the sun's in the right spot, we don't even know that it's coming, and then it flies past us and we go, hey, a meteor just flew past. Isn't that like, we're very unprepared for a cataclysmic event. And I think that it is important that we have some sort of plan B, because right now it's like we have like, 8-10 people in a space station, and they're completely reliant on being able to come back to Earth. That's not really a good plan.
Yeah, it'd be bad news for them if one of those things struck.
Yeah, and can you imagine sitting up there for 3 months and being like running out of food and being like, we can't go back to Earth because it's just on fire?
Yeah.
And that's it? And you're just waiting?
Super sketchy. I wonder how long they can stay up there without assistance from anyone. Yeah,
it's probably not very long. Like, yeah, I guess it would have to be like up to 6 months. But if there's no plan on Earth improving in 6 months, it's like you're just kind of like waiting.
Oh, yeah.
That is very depressing. And I'm very grateful that we have people like Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk working on a plan B, because I think we just sort of take that for granted, that this is... it seems like our generation doesn't really feel like we're going to pass away or die. Like, there's this sort of like immortal mentality that people have now. Like, what were your thoughts during the floods? Because that's how I felt, was like, oh, our supply chains are not good. They're not as strong as we'd like them to be, and we are not prepared for the circumstance. And going shopping that first day while the floods were occurring was like, oh, and like, we're like in a competition now. Like, we're not all friends anymore. We're now like, the shelves are now empty because we're trying to fill our homes. That was
kind of crazy, actually. I feel fortunate there were two like great things that I did that weren't intentional at all. But I had just before the floods, I had just done a huge Costco shop. So that was good. And then also I have this a buddy of mine who is like kind of like a prepper type. And he had been preaching it to me for years. And just before that, I was like, well, couldn't be the worst thing to get some like non-perishable stuff. So I had gone and got a whole bunch of like pasta and canned things. And then the flood struck and I was like, we had tons of food that didn't even affect us. It was total chance. But I heard the stores were chaos and we didn't have to go to them at all.
Yeah.
It was awesome. So there is like, I've kind of rethought emergency preparedness. I think that is that is an important thing. It's like something people don't think about until all of a sudden you need something, and then now you have to mob the stores with everyone.
That was another weird thing because people were like there were like two schools of thought. There was the only buy the essentials, and then there were the people who were like, no, I'm going to take care of my family and make sure that I have food in the house, so I'm going to buy more. And like, again, it's one of those like, there isn't a wrong answer. If you think that there's a correct answer, you're probably wrong, because that's crazy to think that like if you run out of food, you are kind of in like a chaos state.
Yeah.
And so you want to have enough food to take care of your family. And at the end of the day, those are your people. Mm-hmm. The random person in the grocery store is not your people. And so like there is like, again, that balance of like, how do you approach those situations?
Yeah.
And it's good that you were prepared. You were sending me videos as well though, right? Of the water coming up.
Yeah, we so I live right on the river there. Luckily I live right where it's kind of the highest point on the dike and not like just outside of the flood zone in the flats there. And then there's also the like secondary dike where they where the fish run alongside. So it came pretty high up, but it didn't get too sketchy for us. It was like probably within 3 feet of the top of the dike though, which is like normally you have to walk down the dike and down onto the rocks and stuff. Like it was probably up like 15 or 20 feet, I would imagine. It was crazy. It was.
Were you at all nervous or?
A little nervous.
Yeah.
A little nervous for some friends of ours. We had some friends in Yarrow that had to evacuate, but all their stuff was fine as well. It was. Yeah, it was super weird. And it's weird being cut off. Like we were an island. We were cut off from Vancouver and as well from the rest of Canada. So
I felt like that was not reported on the way I thought it was going to be, like we're an island. And my uncle was like, oh, you're like cut off? And I was like, yeah, like we can't go to Abbotsford. We can't go to Hope. We're just stuck here.
Yeah.
And he was like, I had no idea. And it's like, this is crazy.
It's, you know what was kind of funny is I kind of just like posted about that a little bit on my like social media and like on YouTube and stuff. And the amount of support you get from like the community that you make was crazy. Like people that have never met me, like from the vast majority of my viewers are from the United States. And I got so much support from them. And then even the guy that made the stamp there reached out to me from Russia and chatted with me for a bit. Like it's pretty crazy how you make your own community.
I remember talking to Tim McAlpine, who runs Cowork Chilliwack, and he said something similar. He's like, all my support is like, I work with credit unions in the U.S., so like I'm really well known in the U.S., and then like I'm in Chilliwack, and most people don't know when I say like I work for currency marketing and we work on marketing credit unions, nobody knows what I'm talking about, and they're usually starting to tune out. It's so interesting to have these communities of people, because I'll get comments from people that I don't know. Like 30 to 40% of my listeners come from the United States, and I don't know all of them, but when they reach out or when they comment, it's like, this is so
it's cool.
It's bananas.
It's people you would never ever meet in your life otherwise.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know. The internet's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. Do you think that we underestimate that? I was thinking about this last night, is like, it seems like we're very hyper-focused on the flaws of social media and the internet, but it feels like we're not, like one of the things I said in the Fraser Valley panel event was like, we're not like acknowledging that the internet is now in Indigenous communities. And so if they want to learn about finance, leatherwork, if they want to find a passion, all they have to do is hop on YouTube. Now, granted, most people use Facebook and they go online and they talk about their day, but like the opportunities are now endless. Like you can go and hear from some of the most wealthy people. Like there are videos with Warren Buffett. You can go listen to his thoughts on things.
Yeah.
And again, whether you agree with him or not, or you think he was fair or 100% ethical, you can disagree, but you can go hear from one of the most wealthy people who made money on the stock market. And you can just do that all day long and you can learn about finance. And like, I feel like we don't talk about that.
No. I feel like people are so scared of like anything negative, like one, they don't want to listen to someone that they disagree with, or they don't like take criticism well, that I feel like people just kind of like jump right down people's throats instead of hearing them out. Or like you said earlier, we were talking about our first negative comments on YouTube. Well, like I can say probably almost all the negative comments I've got on YouTube were like horrible delivery, like someone just obviously trying to be a dick and cut me down.
Yeah.
But if you get to like the root of what they're saying, there's still a message there.
Yeah.
And if you can like take the criticism and then delete the stupid comment, because they are just being dumb, but there's some truth to all of those. And even like in like normal life, someone being a dick to you, they need to find something to criticize, to take a jab at you. And if you can get to that, you can kind of find there's always kind of a gem in there, I think.
I agree. I would not have improved my YouTube channel the way that I did if it wasn't for that negative comment, because they gave me a perspective that I needed. Like that's, I think, probably I don't know if you feel the same way. One of my biggest challenges is that like getting feedback. What could I do better? What am I messing up that I could stop messing up if you just told me? Most people are like, oh, these are great. And it's like, I appreciate that. That's, obviously, I don't want to hear that I'm an idiot and I'm wasting all my time.
Yeah.
But if you can tell me what I could do better, then I would try and do that.
Well, the internet's amazing for that. That was something that I've like talked about in videos too, is when I started making leather things, you would make it, and then obviously the first people you show are your wife, your family, like your friends, whoever. And of course they're being supportive. So, oh, it looks amazing. And those people are not the people that are going to tear apart your work. But put it online and someone will like instantly. And so like YouTube, Reddit's a good one. You can post pictures and people tear it apart, and usually pretty like respectfully, but they'll give you a proper critique. Whereas your support network is not really who you want to go to tear you apart, I find.
Yeah, you shouldn't look for them.
It's not their job. They're to boost you up.
Yeah. Can you tell us about Reddit? I've never used that platform.
I love Reddit. If there's anything that you like want to do or do, like any interest, if you type it in there, there's like a subreddit for it, like a whole group dedicated
I don't know what that means.
to that thing. Like there's Reddit, and then it's just divided into a bunch of different subreddits, like for each different topic. And there's something for absolutely everything. There's a podcasting one, for instance,
right,
where you could go and talk to other podcasters, as well as there's like 3 or 4 YouTuber ones where people critique or give tips or whatever for YouTube. There's like a videography one, a cinematography one. They're just communities of people, and you join them based on interest instead of who's in it. Like, I'm not a big Facebook fan. I actually got rid of my Facebook and just have like a hidden Facebook with no friends, just to get the business aspects of Instagram. But you can like, what I didn't like about Facebook is that you follow these people, and like you'll follow, say, all of your friends. Say you have 200 friends on there. There's no way that you share every interest of your 200 friends. But if you go on Reddit, then you subscribe to an interest, and it's like an old school forum. So you subscribe to those, and then you just talk about like what you want to talk about. So.
Oh, interesting. So it's more based on interest than like, because they do have communities on Facebook that are like supposed to be about the interest, but it's often nonsense.
Yeah, it is. I am in a few good Facebook groups with my like super hidden Facebook, but mostly I try to find a community on Reddit before I try Facebook. I like it there.
And so have you noticed a lot of benefits in terms of the information? Like what stands out to you about the platform? Is it anonymous?
No. The anonymous ones are kind of sketchy, I would think.
Right.
No, it's not anonymous, and I like that every post, every comment, everything can be upvoted or downvoted. And basically, if you go say something dumb, you'll just get downvoted till nobody sees your thing anymore.
Interesting.
So I'm sure that gets abused somewhere, but the weird niche topics like leatherworking and stuff that I'm in are pretty good communities on there. I'm sure if you went into like meme ones or something like that, there would be a lot more toxicity there. But
the only thing I know Reddit for was the stock market and them messing with the value of stocks.
yeah, they could if your community is big enough, you could easily do that.
That's what they did. They did it with GameStop. They all agreed because I don't know how much you know about stocks, but they were shorting GameStop. So big companies like Goldman Sachs were shorting it, basically saying that this business is likely to go out of business. And so they were voting with their money against GameStop. I'm oversimplifying, and if my law professor is listening to me, he'd be very mad at me. But what Reddit did was, if you take the risk of voting against a stock, when you short it, you're taking a huge risk. And so if the stock goes up, then you're on the hook for the difference between the two. So what GameStop or what Reddit did was they saw what was going on, and they saw that they were shorting GameStop, so they shot the price of GameStop upwards. So, and I think one of the hedge funds went out of business because they were shorting this one stock so much that Reddit ended up bringing down like a traditional kind of business that you think knows it all, and had huge impact. And then there was this huge conversation about like, should retail investors, which would be you and I, be able to do this in the stock market? Should we be able to play that role? And like, anybody who's a true capitalist would say yes, because it's your money, you vote with your money, you make the call. But like a lot of the traditional investors were like, retail investors are not smart enough to understand what they're doing and the risks that they're taking. So we need to take these opportunities away from them that would have negative impacts on our economy.
So it sounds like they just want to keep control of it.
Yeah. It was very interesting, but that's the only interaction I've really had with Reddit.
I could see that, because even, like, I don't know the kind of numbers that you need to affect the stock market, but even in, like, my little, like, leather crafting subreddit, it's still between 200,000 and 300,000 people in there. So I can only imagine that, like, investing ones or gaming ones or meme ones, like, I bet you they can get millions of people in there.
Yeah.
I would think that could affect the stock market.
That's very interesting. Yeah. And so I'm interested to know where you hope to take a lot of your work. Do you have like a plan in mind? Do you see like where you were mentioning, and if you can tell me about him from your perspective, what do you see in I already forgot his name, but you were talking about a person that you admire and what you see in the work that he's doing, and you kind of see like a path, an avenue for yourself. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. First, planning is probably something that I severely lack in. I'm kind of just like flying by the seat of my pants. One thing that I am planning and in talking with my buddy who's involved in a big multi-million YouTube channel, right? He talks about SEO like we were talking earlier. So I have bought a domain called howtoleatherwork.com, and I'm just kind of almost making that more like a course. And I'm going to explore that avenue of having a course like separate from my brand. And obviously it'll like cross-link and promote my other brand because it's still mine. But I'm going to try to kind of do like a leatherworking course to kind of get people started that way. My buddy, the lead, is the guy that taught me. He's a leatherworker nearby us as well. He's gone the sales route. He has seen a decent amount of success in making a wallet design. And then he found a warehouse in the States that will manufacture these. So not by hand, but they're still really nice. And then he sends them his design and then ships them a whole bunch of, actually he uses Horween leather as well. So he ships them the Horween leather. They manufacture these wallets for him. And then he actually puts them out. I think he sells via Amazon. And then the way Amazon works is kind of cool too, is Amazon takes on the whole shipping process and puts it, they have, I think they call them fulfillment centers.
Yeah.
and they put them all throughout the country. And then when you buy on Amazon, it kind of calculates where you are and the stock in the nearest fulfillment centers, and it sends it to you based on that.
Yeah.
So I think making something by hand, if you want to get rich making stuff by hand, it's just not going to happen. Like you need someone making it for you, or you at least need machinery. The whole, like, I know people get like crapped on for like handmade and then they use machines and stuff, but if you want people to put stuff out, like it's not feasible. Like leather workers that buy a sewing machine, if they call it handmade, they get crapped on by people, and it's
no way.
It's ridiculous. Like,
because like how would you do this other than a sewing machine?
Well, that's hand stitched, and to make one of those is to make that, I think that was an hour. That's a pretty easy thing.
But you stitched this all yourself.
Yeah. But
I just assumed you should have told me that. That just blew my mind.
But if you use a sewing machine, then you all of a sudden go from an hour probably down to like half an hour. Like It's like that's one of the longest steps. And then think of something like a bag. Hand stitching a bag versus using machine it completely changes the game for you. Like,
is there a benefit to leather bags in comparison to like if you were using it for like a gym bag or something? Like, would it reduce like the scent or something? Like, is there
no? If you're using it for a gym bag, it would probably be worse. It would probably absorb stuff, but it would last longer for sure.
Yeah.
It'd probably stink though.
So for like a business bag, what would be the process? Because like you think of like what they have as Staples, it does not feel like this, ladies and gentlemen.
It would for like a business bag, like a messenger bag or something like that. They're kind of cool. Like they patina, so they kind of change and become custom to you. Like they're one of a kind, all of them.
Right.
And they just it'll be like a heritage item. Like it shouldn't ever. You have to be really hard on it to wreck it, especially if it's hand stitched. Like that's saddle stitched, so. It's made to withstand like a cowboy on a horse kind of thing. So if your messenger bag is under that kind of stress, then you're doing something crazy with it.
So do you do custom orders, or do you try and avoid that? Is that like something like if listeners are listening to this and having their minds blown?
I do not want customers at this point. I might down the line. Like I am working on some stuff. Like I said, I really like YouTube. So my older brother is kind of thinking about getting into it, and him and I are thinking of making a like Ben and Tim Make Stuff YouTube channel.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're making is a big tabletop laser cutter.
Right.
And that would stop me from having to hand cut everything. It would laser cut everything out, just like.
Is that hard?
To make it?
To cut it.
Oh, no. It's like it's me and an X-Acto knife, so it takes time. Cutting out every piece, whereas you can set up a laser and it'll just kind of go.
That seems like you would require strength, though, right? The poor X-Acto knife is.
Yeah, it's you want to sharpen your tools lots, and you want to make sure all of your tools are up to snuff. But there's ways around it, though. Like probably the most common one is there's a thing called a clicker press, which is just you buy a die, which is like it's just a piece of steel that's in the shape of your whatever parts you're cutting out. Right. And it's sharpened. You put it on the piece of leather, and then it's like a kind of like my arbor press, but bigger.
Right.
Has a big flat platform. I think they're usually like 4 to 10 tons or something like that. And then you just pull it, and it cuts all the pieces out in like ka-chunk.
Oh, interesting.
So people that are selling stuff are using that and then a sewing machine, and you can cut your time down like a ton. It's just making everything by hand. It takes time. And then people criticize the people that want to make money selling these things and buying the machinery because they're like, that's not handmade. But then those are the same people that won't want to pay for the time to fully hand make something.
Yeah.
Like it's a crapshoot because they want the fully handmade thing, but they don't want to pay for it.
Yeah. That sounds like everybody. I want what I want, and I don't want any rules or regulations around the logic of it.
Yeah. And then it causes like people Like I've stopped selling, but I was notorious for like undervaluing what I would sell. Like I would sell something and be like, oh, that wasn't enough money. But even like you're worried when it's like someone asks for a price, you're like, oh, is that too much? And I think probably any small business does that. I bet you everyone does that.
Yeah, because when like the problem is like also if you charge what you know, like if you are confident that say something like this is worth $100 in terms of the work that it takes, is the market gonna react? And then that's sort of your fear, is that you don't want to make something and have people be like, that's too expensive, and you're like, I put a lot of fucking work into this. Like, are you serious?
Well, that's what it is. And then you try to explain to someone like, well, this will probably last you forever, or you can buy a Walmart wallet every year. Yeah. Before I started, I think I had a Fossil wallet. And I think that was my longest lasting one. It was like 2 years before it fell apart.
Can you tell me about a Fossil? Can you compare for me what the difference between this and a Fossil wallet is for people who are dumb and shop at Fossil?
It's not dumb. It's just not nerdy about leather. They'll usually, like if you go to Walmart or any like big box store and see something labeled genuine leather, it's technically right. Usually, so genuine leather is not like a grade term. It's a term that means this is made of leather. So it can it's like it can span the entire spectrum of quality in terms of leather. But it's kind of misleading because genuine leather sounds like a good thing. But if you see like a $10 genuine leather Walmart wallet, it's made of leather, but it's kind of like the like particle board or OSB of leather. Like it's so this is they call it full grain leather. So this is the flesh side. This is the actual like cow's surface of the skin. And if you look, you can see like scars and hair follicles and blemishes and stuff like that. Like it's completely like unedited. So they'll pull the cow's skin off, and they will tan it and make these, and they'll split it into different thicknesses. Like it's pretty thick when it comes off. So they'll take some bulk off of the flesh side, leaving the skin side just kind of unabridged, and then tan it. So it's still one piece of skin, one piece of hide. Whereas those ones then take like whatever they've skinned off of that, whatever like they call it skiving or splitting, whatever they've split down, they take those pieces, kind of slap them together, and they usually use like a polyurethane based glue it together, paint the surface, and then say it's genuine leather. And it is, but it's bonded leather at that point, and it's not the same thing.
You just blew my mind about like just trying to think of this as like, this is cow. Like, again, we get so used to like how things are. Like people really struggle now in like convenience stores of like, oh no, like an animal has to die for me to eat. And so we've gotten to this way of like viewing the world that like nothing is real. That like we're not used to thinking of like when we get our chicken breast, that's actually a chicken. And so when you were like, if you look at this, and you start to see like the parts of the animal and like the shape and how it's like it's unique because it's literally from a cow.
Yeah, that's what I like about it. Like that you can see this character in it. Like I have pieces at home that have the brand on the cow in them. Like that, like the brand that was in the cows.
You just wrinkled my mind.
One of the bags I made it as a birthday present for a friend of ours, and I made her bag, and it has a brand. So she has like a, what do you call it? Like, I forget the name of the bag. She has like a purse kind of thing, and it has a big cow brand on the side of it, which is pretty cool. That is. I should probably mention, because a lot of leather workers get flack too, and someone listening to this might not be happy. So I would say almost all, I'm sure there's some portion that isn't, but the leather that tanneries use is a byproduct of the meat industry. So they are hides that would otherwise just be tossed out.
That's good,
and
right?
That's what they buy. Yeah.
Isn't that a good thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's not like they're killing an animal and taking the skin and tossing it out. The skin is the byproduct from making meat.
Okay, so like it's more ethically sourced, is what you're saying?
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some exceptions to that. Like I'm sure there's some sketchy practice by some tannery somewhere that's just.
Have you ever gotten flack for that? Like, which one is it that the vegans or the vegetarians that are against the use of?
I would imagine both are.
Oh.
I've got a little bit of flack, but mostly
Not from the real leather community, just from.
No, and there's like issues with vegan leather too. Like it's.
I didn't even know there was such a thing.
Yeah, I think there's a couple good ones. I've heard there's guys making, or there's people making really cool wallets out of actually cork, which actually looks pretty neat.
Yeah.
It's not obviously as durable as like an animal's skin. That's literally what it's for, is to protect you. So it's going to be durable. But yeah, cork looks good. I've heard there's like fake leather they're making out of cactus.
That would be pretty durable.
Yeah,
those
like
cactuses there.
But there's like leathers they make out of different like fruits and fibers and stuff like that. But my understanding is it's mostly held together with glues anyways. Like it's like polyurethane based. Like so they say that it's animal free, but then they use sketchy products anyway.
Right.
So I don't know. It's I'm okay using this. It's, as far as I know, it's a byproduct of the meat industry.
Yeah.
And it lasts forever. So like you'll have that, and now you're not going to buy, cheaper leather over and over again every year for however long.
Yeah, not to get political, but I always get weird about the sides, because like for Indigenous people, we would have loved this.
Yeah.
Like this is not against my culture. This is right in line with like our values of sustainability. Using the whole body, using every part of it is like the goal of Indigenous culture. Yeah. And so it seems, I don't know, I always like silently sit there and go like, it seems so weird that like we have like a whole community of people who are like vegans and vegetarians who are like supporting Indigenous people. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, like our whole culture is surrounded around killing animals, using the body, doing the things that like maybe they wouldn't be. Yeah. It always just confuses, like when you have like people who support the cause Indigenous people are interested in, and then seeing like, well, like our values don't align, and like that's fine with me, but it's always interesting to kind of see that like typically the people who would be getting mad at you are in support of like a lot of the issues that we're trying to overcome.
Yeah. It's, I don't know if it's like just people not looking into the whole thing or like taking a stance before they've. I'm not sure. I'm not sure
either. But it always just surprises me, because it's like, oh, you're like super against most of like, you're a vegan, you're a vegetarian, you're against all these things. And then you're like, you support us. And what we would like to do is like, there's a bunch of communities that are working to like regain their fishing industry, grow their hunting industry. And so like all these things that perhaps you would be against, you're supporting us in doing the things that you would take a stance against. Yeah. It always... like philosophically, it's confusing to like follow.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of like the idea, like just that is like the surface of that shows like the animal's skin. It hasn't been like edited, and it's.
Yeah, it seems like something we're lacking in our, like, again, I don't mean to keep saying the same thing, but like it seems like something we're lacking in terms of like authenticity. Mm-hmm. Everything feels like it's like replicatable. And therefore it has less value. Yeah. And so when you make something that's like, you could make another, but it would not be identical to this. No. And it could not be. That seems like something we should be proud of.
Yeah. And it would be from a different animal. Well, I have half of that animal's hide. So someone else has the other half. Yeah. That's only going to make so many things. And then nobody else is going to have anything else from that animal ever. Like,
that's the weird thing about McDonald's, right? Is like they talk about like how many different like pieces of a cow are in your burger because it's not like this one patty is from this one cow. Yeah. That's what they talk about, right?
Yeah. Well, like the way these things come, like they'll come with the brand in them. So with the brand, I would be able to source the farm that it came from. And then they have on the flesh side, they have serial numbers printed. So I bet you that you could track down the cow that each of these things came from. Like it's
That's pretty
I don't know that for sure. I could,
Yeah.
could for sure track the farm based on the image of the brand.
Yeah.
But yeah, I bet you that you could track down the cow that it came from.
Where do you think your interest in like the heritage side of things comes from? Can you trace that to like your dad or your mom was interested in this, that like this comes from? Because the person that you sort of remind me of is like Bill from the Town Butcher, in this belief that like we need quality meat, we need to know where it comes from, we need to be proud of that, we need to take care of our bodies, and we need to take care of these animals so they can take care of us.
Yeah.
And so just that mindset is so rare. The instinct is for people to get away from these things. So do you know where this came from? Like, what made you interested in this aesthetic, this philosophy?
Yeah, I honestly have no idea, to be honest.
Has it always existed? Like, you've always enjoyed like things that are handcrafted or take a energy to make?
I think it's probably more recent. I don't know, probably as I've gotten older. I don't feel like I cared about it in my 20s at all, but
right.
I don't know. Recently, it's just something that I've kind of adopted. I have no idea where it came from, to be honest.
Because like if we were like 100 years ago, you'd maybe more than 100 years ago, you'd remind me of like a blacksmith, like somebody who likes hard work and like building something of quality that you can be proud of, that when somebody talks about it 20 years down the line, they're like, they proudly own what you made. And it's like, it seems like you're out of your time in that you're making something of such quality and such care. And I imagine that the community that you're in is similar in that way, that they miss that authenticity, that proud workmanship, I think it's called, where you actually like do something, and when people carry it around, they're proud to have that leather flag.
Yeah, I would actually love to blacksmith. I just don't have the room for it. But I don't know where it comes from. I love the idea of like having this thing that's, like I said, like you can see it comes from an animal. It's going to last forever. There was this, actually it came from Reddit as well. There was this movement on Reddit called Buy It Once. And it was like a community of people that were sourcing out stuff that you buy once, or buy infrequently anyway, instead of going to Old Navy and buying cheap shirts and jeans. And although I buy my shirts from Old Navy, they're $7, but like I bought a pair of Red Wing boots, which is one of the oldest boots places in the States. They also own the tannery, and I buy a lot of their leather just because I like their stuff. But those boots, like, instead of buying new shoes every year, you wear the boots. The soles will wear out, obviously, but they're made in a way that the sole is unstitched. You get a new sole on there, someone stitches it back up, and then your boots keep going. And there's like countless cases of people with their grandparents' Red Wing boots that they've just taken and carried on, and you resole it every couple of years. But it's not like taking my Nikes and tossing them out and buying new Nikes every year.
Right.
Which I also do. Like, I'm not going to run in these things, but I just like the heritage items because they just continue on. Like, they just keep living life. It's not like causing a ton of waste, not throwing stuff out and buying new stuff constantly.
Yeah, I hate to repeat the same kind of spiel each time, but there's this idea in indigenous communities. It's called the 7 generations principle. Mm-hmm. And the idea is that we look back 7 generations. Mm-hmm. And so I always try and put it into context. So like maybe your parents or your grandparents faced like World War I, World War II, the Great Recession, the Vietnam War. Like they faced certain challenges. And so through, like, what would they have hoped during the Cold War? They would have probably hoped for, like, I want my kids to be born. I don't want there to be a nuclear war. They would have had certain aspirations. And then you're supposed to look forward 7 generations and imagine, like, what could I do in my life to, like, better position my kids, my grandkids? Mm-hmm. How can I... Often people think of it through wealth, but you can think of it through, like, what legacy do I want to set? Certain people have built schools, certain people have helped support libraries. There's different ways to like make your contribution to the world. Yeah. And so it seems like the one area that we've gotten accustomed to like replacing things is like with our goods. Like we have the iPhone 10, then 11, then 12. There's no culture anymore of like your phone should last you 10 years and you should be able to like throw it into a volcano and it should be fun.
Yeah.
Like there's no expectation of lasting in our culture anymore. It's like we've come to the point of like innovation is purely good. And so as long as there's new features added to my phone, I don't need the old phone anymore. And we're doing that more and more with TVs, and we're doing that with clothing. Oh, it needs to have this quality or that quality. We don't seem to have that same investment in like, I want this to be something I can pass on to my children and that they can pass on to their children. That seems to be maybe what you're landing on in terms of like the culture shift, that we're losing that connection.
Yeah. I do like the idea of that, like just being able to pass stuff down. And like, I feel like it would be cool to be like, this wallet, my dad used this wallet, or these were my grandpa's boots or whatever, and he was doing this, working in them, and now I'm like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. It's just cool that you continue using the same thing. And that's how it was like most of the time. This is just a recent thing that we, buy cheaper stuff, toss it out, or what do they call it? Fast fashion.
Yeah.
Where you buy it, toss it out, buy it, toss it out.
Yeah, and we've hit the point where you can buy so much that it's like, there was another, I forget who made the point, but it's like you can learn a lot through YouTube. But like the point the person was making was like, you can't learn everything from YouTube.
No.
There's a lot of wisdom, there's a lot of ways to live your life, ways to like be a good parent that you're just not going to get in a 5-step crash course. These are the 5 things you need to know about X. That like sometimes we think, since this is the new medium of communication, therefore it's the best and only medium of communication. And there's hopefully a lot you can't learn through YouTube that you learn through your grandparents, like family recipes.
Yeah.
You can't go online and hear about your family's family recipes.
Yeah.
Because that's your family's and they're likely not on YouTube. And so connecting with those things and like learning about that and building that up is something that like you should be proud to do, that connects you with those past generations in a way that like, I don't know if I've talked about this before too, is that we don't seem to appreciate our family lineage the way we used to. We don't seem to place that weight of like, what did your grandfather do? And how does that apply to you? There's this kind of belief that you're your own thing and you have no connection to your grandparents or great-grandparents, that you're you, and so you don't need to know what they did.
Yeah.
And that seems to be where we're at right now.
Yeah. It's funny that you talk about the rest. I like to cook as well. So, but I've thought of that too. Like my family doesn't have like family recipes and stuff. That's not something that we have, but I've thought about it, and it would be cool to think like with a family recipe, like these ancestors of mine were eating this same thing that I'm eating right now, and it like should taste relatively the same, right? Like it's going to obviously be somewhat different, but like it's like just doing that same, it's like a connection between you and them is just so cool. Yeah.
And it seems like, again, it just seems like we're not promoting that it's whatever's new on Skip the Dishes or DoorDash that seems to pull our attention more. And it's not that those things don't have a place. It's not that you have to pick, but being able to like, that's where I think there's space to like admire other traditions, like the Jewish tradition. I've heard from Eric Weinstein and Brett Weinstein, the Jewish food is not overall considered like the most delicious food, but they've passed these traditions and the ways of doing things on from generation to generation. And like I lost my grandmother, who was part of like my inspiration for doing this last year, and you just think about like the sacrifices people had to make during the Great Depression. They didn't have all the food, so they had to figure it out, and so they may have developed a recipe that doesn't taste the best, but it gives you a reminder of where she was at during that period of her life to make that recipe. And then it's like it's more the story around it than just, oh, this better be the most delicious yam that I've ever had in my life. Like that's not always the point of like the recipe.
But food like really reminds you of those people. Like I have a Mexican friend, and she celebrates Day of the Dead. Yeah. And part of Day of the Dead is that you make your like altar, which is like a dedication to your dead relatives. Yeah. And you make their favorite foods and you put them there and you eat their like favorite foods, and there's definitely a connection there between foods and people. Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it, but they have it on YouTube right now, but they also have it on Disney Plus. It's Morgan Freeman. He goes through all the different religions, and he does one on God and all the different belief systems around God, like death, all the different approaches, evil, like saviors, heroes, and they have one on each one. And it's so interesting to see because we like to separate ourselves. I'm Presbyterian, I'm Muslim, and then you see Morgan Freeman goes through each belief system, and they've all got those core elements, and there's differences in that. Like I think it was like a culture in India believes that you're reincarnated, and being reincarnated is actually a bad thing. What you want to do is you want to pass on to and like not exist anymore, and that is like like success. Like you've succeeded in your life, and so you don't need to continue. And I might be getting a little bit of that wrong, but the idea is that like reincarnation occurs, but if you go to this one specific spot, you don't have to be reincarnated in anymore, and that you've succeeded in your physical existence.
Yeah.
Where other cultures really struggle with like the idea of like, is Jesus a real person or not? And I've always tried to land on the idea that like whoever he was, there's this idea that like he's the ultimate role model. He was not selfish. He was not narcissistic. He was not out for just himself. He was trying to make everybody better. And like, what if you lived like that? Like, why can't you start to take one step a day to live more like that? And to like your choice to support people in the leatherwork and stay true to that, despite opportunities to make more money or to charge people like outlandish amounts for like the templates, you want to lean against that. Purely because you want to support people in their passions, and that's why you started this. Staying true to that, I think, is admirable, and I think it's easy for other people to overlook. But like, you just wonder how much money could you make if you started selling templates? If you really focused on just like marketing those templates, and you could probably make more money. Yeah. And like, you've invested a lot of time. Nobody could really fault you if you chose to go that route, because think of the time perhaps with your wife or like just working on things on the side that you've sacrificed to work on this, but you've chosen to stay true to it. I think that that's admirable, but it doesn't get the same golden sticker as like other things get. And I think that that's where we need to like reflect more and slow down and think about what do we want to admire about people, because we do default to just money. How much money does somebody have? Well, that makes them admirable. Well, it doesn't really. Yeah. You should think more about what the person's doing and their passion. And like, I know a lot of people who aren't following their passions, who aren't doing what they need to do. So I think that's what needs to be uplifted most of all at this time. When I interviewed Paul, he was like, I've been doing this since I was 13. Like, I've loved bees since I was 13 years old. It's like, that's crazy. And this person knows, he was explaining how like honeybees, they dance in their hive in order to communicate where they're going to go out when they go out. Like,
that's cool.
What? And him knowing that, and like me, obviously, and most people not knowing that, it's like, this person's admirable because they've figured out what they like, what they care about, and they've shared that with today all of the listeners and all the people who are watching. And he shared that with every person he's interacted with, and he does these webinars, he shares it with them. And so I think that that's what we need to lift up more, is just people, when they figure out what they care about, sharing that with people and being proud that somebody's willing to do that, because it seems to be the hardest step, is making the first YouTube video, actually putting yourself out there and putting yourself on the line, then improving from there.
Yeah, it for sure is. Like, I think it's hard putting yourself out there for like anything. Like, when you first started anything, you're going to suck. Yeah. It's not going to be great. And for YouTube, you're putting yourself out there in front of basically however many people YouTube wants to show you to. Yeah. And you're going to get some hate. But I don't know. I feel like if you put yourself out there, you're going to get some amount of hate from wherever you do it. And it's just, there's always going to be those types of people. And it's kind of take what you can from it and then just disregard them.
Yeah. That seems to be the interesting thing. Do you get a lot of like negative? I don't feel like I get any negative comments. Maybe I'm not that big, but I don't get that many negative comments.
No, I don't get too much. I get a little bit, or there's people that it's not really they attack you, but it's people that I get some like people commenting on the channel, do this, don't do this. And then you like go check their channel and they don't put out anything. Like it's like, they just want to criticize something.
Yeah.
So I don't get so much hate. I get more of that, like one-offs of people telling me how to do stuff based on essentially nothing. Everything I do on my channel, I've like tested and there's a reason that I do it. Like one that I get somewhat frequently is don't put music in the background. But everything I've researched and from like testing it on my channel, it extends my retention. Like just because one person tells you something doesn't necessarily reflect your entire what you're
like the music in the back of the video that you're making. Interesting. How do you go about choosing that music?
It's super easy. There's a well, you can get it for free. First of all, you can get music. There's a really good YouTube audio library, which is royalty-free music that they put out, and you can use it in your videos and monetize it, no problem. Right. There's a few companies. I use one called Epidemic Sound. It's really good. They have, I think their library's like, I want to say like 70,000 songs or something like that. Really good. And then I just kind of listen through and try to find a song that I like. They have like a old school hip hop kind of section. So I usually lean towards that, something mellow, and put that in the background. But
are you more of a hip hop person? What type of music do you like?
I like pretty much everything except country. I like everything except country.
So who are some of your favorites right now?
Oh man, I don't even know. I'm a big like. I guess I feel like I'm like aging because I'm not keeping up to date with music, and now I'm kind of experiencing what probably my parents experienced. But yeah, I really like Eminem and Dr. Dre and that whole like crew that would have been like early 2000s for me. Yeah. And I'm still listening to a lot of their older stuff as well as listening to some of their newer stuff, but it's not the same. Yeah. Not the same.
I don't disagree. I feel like there has been a shift. I'm a big fan of, I've talked about them before, Echo and Vinjay. They're very new, independent people, but their story is basically like, I'm doing what I'm passionate about and I'm fighting to preserve that. And that's my favorite part about hip hop, is that it feels like all of it's inspirational in that like they're defying the odds, whatever those odds are. Yeah. And I find that message super inspirational because like my teachers growing up in like middle and high school were like, this kid's not going to graduate. Like in front of me, in front of my mom, like this kid's not on the right path. Your kid's not going to go in the right path. And so like hearing that and then listening to the Eminems, that was super inspirational to me to be like, don't listen to those people. They have no investment in the outcome of your life. And I think that's where hip hop comes in. I know a lot of people don't like certain songs, or they have like an idea of what hip hop is or rap, but that's always what stood out to me, is that belief that like defy the odds. Don't listen to the naysayers. Chase what you're passionate about.
Yeah. Like they'd use bad words and stuff, but I always feel like the message was mostly good and like, I don't know. A lot of what they say is joking, and then people are pretty sensitive and don't like some of their jokes. So I don't know. I feel like most of the like horrible stuff they talk about doing was said tongue in cheek, and just they're probably not actually doing that stuff.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And then I think that one of the challenges is that like we like to have like super, like if you think of radio music, like the music they're able to play, it's like it's super safe. And so it doesn't have like the meaning, it doesn't have a story. And if you don't know what Eminem went through, then you're lacking a whole lot of the context of why he makes the music that he makes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that that's part of the laziness of like criticisms, is like, well, I don't like what he's saying. And it's like, well, you need to understand where he's coming from and what he's overcome. Because one of his recent songs was like, most people have no idea what I went through, and now they think I'm so famous that like I should be this way. But it's like, you don't realize how crazy it is that I went from where I was to where I am today, and like how much odds I had to defy to be here to talk to you and sing to you today.
Yeah, that you even know who he is. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I think he lives I think there's a lot of people kind of in his same circle that were same thing, where they just kind of brought themselves up out of nothing, and it's crazy.
That's the best story. That's my favorite story, is the one where like somebody defied the odds. Like Bigger Than Me is a song from Big Sean, and his album I Decided was like a story. Like the album is like, to me, like actual artwork, because the intro is like an old man being like, I failed at life. I failed at everything. And he's talking about these kids, and he's like, these kids have no one to look up to, man. Like I lived for nothing. Like I just did this job 9 to 5, didn't amount to anything. And then throughout the song, he has different spots where he's like, he brings this old man in, and he's like, well, like, what could I have done differently, and how could I have impacted people better? And then the last part of the song, The Bigger Than Me, is where he realizes that like he can be that person, that he made the money, he was very successful by like breaking records on like billboards and stuff like that, but none of that matters if he doesn't give a message that inspires and motivates people to figure out what their passion is and share that with people. And then he's talking to his mom on the phone in the last part, and he's like, I feel like I failed at everything in like a past life or something, and that I'm here to like go succeed. Yeah. That like I've learned my lesson from like a past life, and it's my job to go turn everything around for my community. And like I don't know if you know, but like part of this started, I have like a great photo of the Paramount behind you, and one of the things that like really got me involved in the community was trying to save the Paramount. Yeah. He lost in Detroit. He lost his theater, and he's working to bring it back, and he's trying to like fund a theater to come back to his community. So I see a lot of parallels between what he's doing and what I'm trying to do. And so he's been a huge motivator that like, I don't know, I don't talk about too much, but talking to you, it's easier to, when I'm talking about other people's lives, it's tough to talk about myself as well.
I like that. That's cool. I didn't know any of that actually.
Yeah, I don't know why. These are the albums from I Decided. Yeah. I couldn't figure out anything else to put there, but it looked super bland without something above and below the logo. So I thought it was important to put something in.
It's funny how like hip hop can like influence like people that you wouldn't think. Like these guys are like completely different from you or I, and then we're still sitting here like inspired by them. Even like I have another leatherwork buddy that actually I'm going on his podcast in June, but like he's in LA, and him and I talk, and we're pretty similar too. And him and I both have like hidden like Wu-Tang Clan stuff on our sets because he's starting YouTube, but he blew up on TikTok.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you messed around? What are your thoughts on like the different social media platforms?
I think it's what you like. I mean, TikTok, I found if you do like goofy videos, it's easier to blow up there. Like I don't think anything serious. I shouldn't say anything, but I think it's easier to blow up there if you're doing something funny.
Yeah.
And so I've done like a little bit, but they're easy to make. Like it takes me 10 minutes to make a funny TikTok video, and it does pretty well. But even so, it's not really like my passion. It was more of just trying to do something goofy.
Yeah. Yeah, I find that super interesting, like with TikTok, because I don't know if you know this, but in China, they don't allow...
I was going to say this.
Yeah, they don't allow goofy videos to make the top list. They only allow like scientific videos, educational videos to make their algorithm is set up differently to highlight different things. And that just makes me sad.
It is, and there's conspiracy theory around it because it's a Chinese company, is it not, TikTok?
Yeah.
And so there's conspiracy theory that they intentionally set up the algorithm in North America to dumb us down.
What's weird is that people think that that's a conspiracy theory because you think of the Olympics. You think of like Russia in the Olympics, and what was that documentary called? Icarus. Yeah. Of how they were trying to dope up their team to do better at the win. Like it's so weird to me when we think about the Olympics because it's like it's weird that we define ourselves based on these standards. Like our country is defined whether we win or lose. And I always find I'm not that big into sports. Like I know like the soccer competitions go on and hockey and the Olympics go on. I'm just never been that invested. I've gotten way more invested in like the UFC because I love getting connected to one person's story and seeing their rise or their fall or what they go through and seeing those interviews where like team sports is harder to connect with because if they fail, it's like the team failed. Yeah. It's not like one person. And so when you think of like, is China like doing this as a conspiracy theory, it's like, why would they not want to make their society smarter and like have other people trail behind? Like that seems like what they would want to do if you compare it to like Russia in the Olympics.
Yeah, that seems like a smart thing to do on there. And like if they could do it, why wouldn't they?
It seems weird that you would want other people to be disadvantaged just trying to be like an altruistic good person. Yeah. But it makes sense if you are a competing economy that want to prove that your economy is better than everybody else's. And yeah, they've got some weird stuff with Huawei too. And
I've heard that, yeah.
And like different approaches to their systems. And I don't know if you've heard about what's going on in Shanghai, but they've like locked their country back down.
No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, at least is Shanghai a city or a state? I do not know if Shanghai is a city or a state, but I know that they locked Shanghai back down and they've had real problems because almost all of their food is fresh. Like they don't have preservatives like we do in Canada or the US. And so they have to get like fresh meat. And since they've shut everything down, they've had real problems. I watch Breaking Points on YouTube and they're independent journalists and they do a really good job of summarizing things. And that was one of the things they were talking about.
That's another good point though, like of like being, we were talking about earlier, how is it a good idea to like buy from Amazon or buy local? And it's like, some of each is good. And that's another good example of like, everyone thinks fresh food's better, but no, preserved food definitely has its place. Like you want some of each. I was happy to have preserved food when I was stuck on an island in a flood. Like,
yeah, for real. And like, it was interesting to see people react during the like COVID shutdowns because there was a little bit of flirting with the idea of like, maybe like it would be better if we were more authoritative. Like it would have been easier to like lock everything down if we had a dictator that was able to just come in and say everything is shut down the way that they did in China. And now it's like nobody wants that. Like the fact that we were able to negotiate things and try and come to decisions that the whole society agreed with seemed like the best path forward. But like during those early days of COVID, like in the news, they were like, yeah, but like China's able to shut everything down immediately. And there was like a little bit of like jealousy towards their ability to handle it that way. Yeah. And now it's like, now that I don't know if we can say COVID is over, that I
think we're on our way out.
That we're putting it in the rear view mirror.
Yeah.
Suggests that we're in a better state than perhaps Shanghai in their circumstances now, because they're going through it again and they're trying to like get rid of it 100% by locking down, and that doesn't. New Zealand tried that didn't seem to work very well.
Yeah, didn't Quebec try that too?
I think so.
Curfews and stuff.
Yeah, it was a very interesting couple of years. And it'll be interesting to see the effects of the lockdowns, because now there's research starting to come out to suggest that that was harmful to certain people and that it had various deleterious effects. And I think that hopefully we learn from this. Hopefully there's a lot of knowledge to gain from what we've gone through over these past few years, because it's been a growing experience for so many to hopefully reconnect with their family. Like you started your leather work as perhaps partly due to like being on paternity leave, but also being at home more, it sounds like. Yeah,
I had a kid during COVID too. So.
What was that like? What was that?
Actually, I had a kid and then I was diagnosed with cancer the next month, right before COVID.
Okay, you have to elaborate on that one.
So it was the whole like 2020 was like a blur for me. It was crazy.
Tell us about that journey. Okay, first, can you tell us about meeting and like finding your wife? Because I think that that's something we don't talk about enough. Is like what we love about our spouse.
Yeah, there's nothing like we met online like a long time ago. So we've been together. This is I think we've been married 12 years now, 13 years now. 13 years this year coming up.
Wow.
I think we've been together 14 or 15. But yeah, we met online like way back in the day. And then we've just...
What was that first date like? What did
super awkward, man. We showed up, we drove out to Othello Tunnels in Hope there and just like went for a walk. But showed up, I think I dropped my keys under the car and then we drove out there, got there. I had this like crappy old Cavalier. As we pulled in, my gas gauge decided to just all of a sudden it was like lying to me. It just went out of gas, and then I locked my keys in the car. It was a disaster. The whole thing was crazy. And then we were like, well, what do we do? So we just like went for a walk through the tunnels and stuff. Well, like this is a future Tim's problem, and then. Went for a walk and then came back and had to call BCAA and be like, hey, can you come get the keys out of the car? Also, can you bring a can of gas? It was super bad. I was super nervous and like, oh, I totally looked like a chump.
Why?
It was bad. Just it got better after that. Obviously, but the first one, I was a nervous wreck kind of, and luckily, she gave me a second date. So.
And what was that one like?
Yeah, much better, I think. I think we just played it safe and went for dinner. But yeah, fast forward like I said, 15 years or whatever, and then we finally had a kid, and she's awesome. She's turning 3 in August, and that was a kind of a culture shock too, especially to like she was born in August, and then by was it February of 2020 we were locked down. So she was born August 2019, and then we were locking down like 6 months later.
Right.
And then it was kind of weird. Like she hasn't been interacting with kids or anything because of the lockdowns, and now we have her in like a preschool and she's getting to interact with people. But for anyone that had a kid in there, I think it was super weird.
What was that like? Were you nervous? Like, was it because you want your kid to be like ready for the world? So it was like tough at all to navigate that and be like, I wish, or were you happy to be like, I get this kid all to myself?
It's kind of a bit of each. Like I'm kind of like an introvert, so I was kind of happy to stay inside, but I think kids need to socialize, so it was kind of crappy that she couldn't go out and socialize, and then they would like lift the restrictions and we would get her out there and try to find her friend, and then they'd shut her back down, and like that happened a few times.
Right.
But I don't know, seems not too phased her. She like, I guess she got to interact with her family and stuff like that, and now she's in, actually there's this really cool like outdoor preschool that she's in that
cool.
They meet along the Vedder River there, and they just go and hike and play in the mud, and it's super cool. I wish
that is really cool.
I wish something existed like that when I was a kid.
Yeah. And then you were diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah. So I was we had her in August, and then I was diagnosed with cancer in September
Oh my gosh.
2019.
What happened? How did that come about?
It was a tumor, like a testicular cancer.
Oh my
so it
gosh.
was pretty apparent. And then it was diagnosed fairly fast and removed, and the whole thing was like a blur. But then it sucked because that's one of the easier cancers to deal with. Like I didn't have to undergo radiation or anything like that. Like I was pretty lucky we cut it early, and it's I think they said I'm like 99% chance that I'll probably am cured forever now. But then it's like scary. And then like Amanda she had a cesarean when she gave birth. So she had just had surgery too and can't like lift the baby and stuff. And then I went for surgery and now I can't lift. It was,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, that time was a nightmare.
Was it at all scary, or was it dealt with like so quickly that there wasn't like an opportunity to be?
It depended on the day.
Okay.
It was, some days were scary. Like more so if I was like alone driving to work or something like that, or like if anyone went out, then I was like sitting there alone, then of course that's all you're thinking about.
Right.
And even then, like I knew that it wasn't like the worst cancer. Like it happens to a ton of guys.
That doesn't seem like it would help that much.
It doesn't in the moment. It's now I'm like, oh yeah, like I was probably fine. Like the doctor seemed like totally chill about it, and he's like, yeah, we gotta get that out of there. It'll be fine though. Or he didn't say it'll be fine, but he seemed so casual about it that it was pretty calming. And then going to BC Cancer. Other than BC Cancer, like I find they really try to treat you with kid gloves, which is probably not the best approach for me. Like I walked in there thinking I was cured, and then filled out their paperwork and thought I was dying. So.
Oh my gosh! So BC Cancer was like the worst place?
No, I'm sure like they're catered towards like being supportive of people.
Yeah.
But I walked in there thinking that it was all behind me, and then you fill out this paperwork and it's asking you if you're like suicidal and stuff like that, which are probably questions that they need to ask.
Yeah.
But I filled this out and I was like, oh God, I think I'm dying again.
Oh no.
So yeah, it was kind of a blur of from August 2019 to, I don't know, coming out of it now. It's been kind of a blur of things.
Yeah, because then the pandemic happened shortly after that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it was just, I was, I don't know, off having had surgery, and then I was off during the pandemic on paternity leave, and it was, I don't know, kind of weird for me.
Yeah. Did the leather work help at all with working through that?
Yeah, for sure. It was like something to do.
Yeah.
And like I have this, I know I have like tattoos and stuff, but I have this huge phobia of needles, terrified of them.
Yeah.
This is like a different kind of needle. So
Can you tell us about those after your?
yeah, for sure. But I was getting blood taken and tested every 2 months for years after. Like, I think I'll have to go for blood next week. Yeah. But it starts at like every 2 months you go for blood work, and then you either do an X-ray or a CT scan, right? And they alternate because you don't want to do too many CT scans in a year. And then after the first year, I think I went to once every 3 months, and then it went to once every 4 months and progresses. And now I'm once a year, I think. I think this will be my last once every 6 month blood and CT scan, and then I'm once a year, which will be amazing. But yeah, terrified of needles. So that was almost worse than surgery for me, is getting that much blood drawn.
Oh my gosh. So how did you end up getting the tattoos done? Like, if you're uncomfortable with the needles? Yeah,
it's a totally different experience. It kind of feels like a cat scratch. It hurts, but it doesn't feel like a needle.
Right.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't know, kind of looks like a scary thing, but it's actually just super nerdy. I really love old like horror books, and H.P. Lovecraft is my favorite author.
Okay.
And so this is Cthulhu, which is probably one of his like most famous characters.
Interesting. And what does it represent?
Nothing. It's like a big alien god in one of his books. It's just my favorite book. So.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Is that the only tattoo you have?
I have a few. I have actually a whiskey jack on my leg because I like to hike, and it was.
What's a whiskey jack?
Sorry, it's like a bird. So. It's we found them. We hiked up Elk Mountain one day.
I love elk.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite hike because it's like short enough and the view's amazing. But when we got to the top, there were whiskey jacks everywhere, and they were coming like stealing our food, my wife and I. Like, because we have like one of those little jet boil things, so we would hike up wherever. Like, we used to hike a ton. And then I had like a coffee press attachment, so we would make like coffee at the top of the mountain.
No way.
And then have like sandwiches and stuff. And these whiskey jacks were like stealing our food, and it was crazy. They would come and land on you, like you would be eating, and they would come land on your arm and like peck away at your.
I've seen people like put out their hand and have like.
Yeah, it was crazy. So kind of just like that. This has like very little meaning other than this is my favorite book, and this is more like. That was a fun time. Like whiskey jacks were like everywhere whenever we'd go hiking, and it was just. Kind of represented being out in the bush kind of for me.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Israel Adesanya, who's a UFC fighter, and he did a tattoo tour. And I think that those, like the stories behind tattoos are always like interesting, even if they don't have a meaning, that like somebody, like its connection with your favorite book, like that often the times those are not things people ask you in like your day to day. Like, what's your favorite book? And like, what is it, like, why do you enjoy that? Like, those aren't questions that people typically ask. And so having a tattoo of it or like an experience you had, I think that that's a cool way to preserve it. And I like the idea of tattoo tours.
Yeah. Yeah. I like tattoos that mean something.
Yeah.
I like that this one has meaning. I think this tattoo is a nicer tattoo, but it's, again, it's like just a favorite book. But I like the same, like people saying the meaning behind each of their tattoos. Like, my wife has a whole bunch of them, and hers have a lot more meaning than mine do.
Do you have any that come to mind?
She actually also has a bird, like not a matching one, but she has a bird on her shoulder that I think was inspired by the same thing. And then there's been this weird like thing in our marriage where birds, even though she's terrified of birds, which is kind of funny.
Oh, interesting.
But birds have like kind of represented, they've been symbolic for us, like the whole way through. Even like we honeymooned in Jamaica. We've both always loved Jamaica, and so we immediately knew we wanted to go there. And then like even like Bob Marley's like Three Little Birds was playing everywhere there, and that's kind of like became our song. And like, so it's like this weird bird thing. Yeah, she's terrified of them, but yeah, birds have like followed us everywhere.
That's funny. I'm having my grandmother like loved birds, and she would go bird watching. And one of her books behind this, the Stolo Coast Salish, is one of her bird books. And I'm actually trying to have Chris Koo on, who he does bird tours at Blackie Spit and all through the Rees Valley. He's got bird photography, and I'm hoping to learn more about birds and owls and like what he sees, sort of like how I did with Paul with bees. Like, I think that that's so interesting that like when you go for for walks or hikes, you have to overlook so much that you almost become arrogant to the idea that there's stuff to learn, that there's like you walk up Elk Mountain or something, or you even go for a walk along the Vetter Trail or a trail near you, and you're walking past like different types of grass, different types of trees, different wildlife in the water, different wildlife in the forest. Like there's so much different birds up above you, the different types of bees. Like there's so much life around you, but you can walk the whole Vetter Trail and not think about any of it. Yeah. And so like you miss out on so much of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that Vetter Trail for that. So we both grew up in Abbotsford actually, and simply moved out here just for the price of housing out here was not so great now, but at the time it was. Yeah, you would have grabbed like a good time because you're right near the Vetter, which is like prime real estate now. Yeah. 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 So we landed in like a really big townhouse, like bigger than a lot of houses. It was actually crazy, and it was total luck. Like, our realtor was amazing, and he was taking us to all these amazing places, but none of them were like just right. And it was right in the middle of like a buyer's boom, and there was no subject to sale of your own place. So we had sold our place, and we needed to find a place. And so he had to have that hard talk with us, like, you guys are going to have to settle pretty soon here. And then like the next time after we had that talk with him, he found this listing that was like at the bottom of all the listings online. It was almost like, he said, it was almost like the realtor that had listed it like forgot to like relist it, like pull it and relist it to bump it back up to the top. It was just sitting there. It was an amazing price. And we walked in, and from the moment we walked in the front door, we're like, oh yeah, this is it. And just walked around, and we're like, no, this is it. And he was just like, yeah, I know. It was exactly what we wanted.
Oh my gosh.
It's on the river, like not like waterfront, but it's on the river. Like I can be on the Vetter River in 2 minutes. Yeah. We have 2 dogs. There's like an off-leash like dog walking section of the path there. We got a couple bikes. Like it's perfect for especially like everything. Daughter to grow up and ride her bike, go rip down the trail and stuff. It's super cool.
Yeah, and the community's only getting better. It's over amazing. Time. Yeah.
And like we really like food. One of the biggest things that COVID actually brought is food trucks, actually like food trucking out in public. I feel like food trucks turned into this thing where they only went to events for a long time.
Yeah.
And now the city of Chilliwack has put all these like designated spots all along that trail. And we can like walk out and like go eat at G's Donair is amazing. Or even like walk down, we'll take the bikes or walk down to Vetter, what's the park? There's a Vetter Park.
Yeah. Which like there's like different ones along the way.
Down by the bridge.
Yes, Vetter.
Yeah. So we'll go there, and they got like that coffee truck there.
Amble coffee.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
And then, kid can play on that. I can drink some coffee and eat whatever. They had that Dutch food truck there. I tried a bunch of Dutch food. It was really good. Yeah. It's all deep fried, but anything deep fried's good, I guess. But yeah, it was really good. Had some coffee, and
I love the idea of doing like I don't know if you know who Brendan Schaub is, but he has like Food Truck Diaries, which is like a UFC thing where he sits down with UFC fighters. I love the idea of that. I love the idea of sitting down over some food and like talking about things for like a 30-minute interview or something.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like a Jerry Seinfeld comics.
Yeah, comics having coffee in cars.
Yeah. It was just him like taking things he likes and stringing them together.
Yeah.
And pitching it to a network. Hey, I want to do this, making money off it. It's awesome.
I couldn't agree more. It sounds like you're really happy in that place too, and it's a good size, and it's going to be a great place for your family to grow up.
Yeah, I love Chilliwack. We moved here completely based on the price of housing out here being better than Abbotsford was, and now we would never move back to Abbotsford. It was almost like underlying, like, oh yeah, we'll move back to Abbotsford eventually. But no, I just never would. What
stood out to you? What made it seem like this was the place to be that was like an improvement?
Just like I said, the housing cost, it was the primary thing. But we've always liked hiking and camping and stuff. So being like, I mean, I can be on Chilliwack Lake Road going into the back country in 10 minutes. Like it's nothing. Or we can go have like a campfire along the river there. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Whereas there's not a lot of places you can do that. We can be up in the mountains and in snow in August if we really want. Like, it's just super cool. It's a super cool place to live.
Yeah, I agree. It's very diverse. And like, I have a buddy who's an RCMP officer who lives in Langley, and he moved from Chilliwack to Langley for the work. And one of his biggest complaints is like, you can be on like a back road, just enjoying like the stars or just on a cruise and have no traffic around you in Chilliwack. And you don't have to take like a highway to get there. And he's like, where I live, which is like right near the freeway, he's like, I need to drive on like a highway for about 15 minutes to get into Maple Ridge before I'm in an area that has like less densely populated space. Yeah. And Chilliwack is like, you can drive in for 5 minutes and you can likely be on a road that's taking you to the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, you can. And like Maple Ridge, like Golden Ears is gorgeous. That's a nice area. But I feel like Chilliwack, you can pretty much drive 30 minutes in any direction and end up somewhere like amazing.
Yeah.
Like even like, was that Harrison you were in at the Eagle place that you sent me?
Yeah, that was crazy to me. Like when the best part of hosting this podcast is meeting and talking to unique people who know things that I would never know of my independent knowledge of Chilliwack, and having them be like, oh, you didn't know about this? Like, there's this eagle viewing spot in the middle of a golf course that I thought was completely private. And we just went there, and we were able to see the eagles. We were right along the Harrison River. It was just crazy.
Yeah. It's like a 30-minute drive. Like
to get from here to there, probably something like that, yeah.
Yeah. It's like crazy.
Yeah, and you're like right in this area, and you wouldn't know it. Like, they don't market it to people that like, hey, come into our golf course and come check out our eagles. But like, yeah, the experience was super cool. And I'm just interested because Stahelis First Nation just signed a new reconciliation agreement. I'm interested to see how their tourism develops. And so like, I keep going out to communities to see what's going on. I'm hoping to help my own community, which is Chawathal First Nation, which is along, if you're heading to Hope from Agassiz, we're on the left-hand side. Mm-hmm. I'm interested to see what other communities are doing in terms of tourism, because I think, again, like that back area, people want that. They'll pay for that. And how do we make it really cool? Because the other person I'm having on shortly is Dean Work. He runs Fraser Valley Fishing Adventures. That's and cool. He just built these domes. And it's like you sleep in them, but you get like the whole night sky when you're going to bed. And he just built all of those. And like those people are like inspirational. Like how do you build something like that that's going to bring in tourism, but also give people those experiences that, again, we're moving away from with like being indoors all the time and not going out into the, like we have so much, what's it called? The light,
light pollution.
Light pollution, that you don't get to see the stars the way you're meant to see the stars. And I think part of that is important for people's humility. So when he's bringing stuff like that back, just that interests me.
That's super cool. I feel like there is like a trend going that way, like to get back to basics a little bit. Like, I mean, I love that stuff, but I still like my phone and internet and that. So there is like some give and take, but I like that it's trending kind of to get back to it. I hope like, going out in the bush and having fun comes back, because that's, I don't know, that's all we did as kids, is just hop on bikes and disappear into the bush and come back at vaguely dinner time.
Yeah, and just having a little bit more risk in your life. Like, it feels like that's perhaps the biggest thing that we're lacking, is a sense of like, this isn't guaranteed. Like, we have so many waivers for everything now. Like, how about when you're leaping off of a giant cliff because you're bungee jumping, you know that it's not the business's fault if you're like something bad happens. Like, you're jumping off a cliff, like, you want this to be 100% safe. Like, this cannot be 100% safe. No.
It feels like everything's like bubble wrapped now. Yeah. Like, there's, I don't know, and like even raising our kid, I'm by no means an expert parent. I've been a parent for 2.5 years, but there were like some things where we were just like, that seems weird. Like, why would you safeguard everything this much? Yeah. One of the weird things, we never put up baby gates on the stairs. Yeah. And we're like, well, she needs to learn how to use the stairs. She's awesome at the stairs now. She's never fallen down the stairs. We were just like super mindful. Like, I almost feel like some baby proofing would almost make you less attentful, because you're like, oh, that's there to stop that issue. And so there was like a few things where we thought it was like too bubble wrapped, and some risk is probably a good thing. Like, they're learning opportunities.
Yeah. That's the weird thing. Even if you compare it to like growing up, there were like the metal slides. And those in the summer, they burn you. They burn. And so like that feeling of like, oh, you got to be careful is like something you just learn. And it's an experience that helps shape your understanding of the world and gives you that own responsibility over the consequences rather than I need to go talk to the school or the slide manufacturer and we need to talk about this. It's like, no, there's some things where you need to be ready for consequences.
Yeah. There's like, now I would say one of the biggest benefits of being a parent is that you get to go play on the playgrounds again.
Yeah.
So I get to see the new equipment. Like, a lot of what we played on when we were kids is gone, like long gone.
Monkey bars.
Monkey bars exist. They're real low now, though. I think my favorite was like, remember the big like net of tires that was all together and it was like a U shape?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, those are long gone.
The one I remember is the one where you'd start running and you'd start spinning the thing.
Yeah, those are gone.
Yeah, those are gone. Because like even then it was like, this is not safe. If I let go, I'm flying.
Yeah. There's one like I would assume it's the modern version of that at Peach Park.
Yeah.
But they've put in it like it spins, like it's a little platform they stand on. It has like ropes up to the top that they can hang on to. But it's like they intentionally put horrible bearings in it that it won't spin. Like it turns if you turn it, but it won't spin on its own.
Right.
And I feel like that's a feature they add.
They're like, we could give you the fast version or we can slow this down.
Yeah. But I mean, that's not to say like safeguarding some things isn't worth it. Like definitely so now there's no pea gravel, it seems, at playgrounds now, and it's like bark mulch. Yeah. That's way nicer to land on. That makes more sense to me.
Well, it would even be better if they had that spinning thing that they were able to land on that instead.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you're also interested in the UFC, and I'm just interested in if you keep up.
I love it. I haven't been following it too much. I became a big Khabib Nurmagomedov fan.
Really?
I started to really like that guy, other than his like little freak out he had with Connor's crew.
Yeah.
But then there was like a lot to that backstory too that led up to that. So I can understand him losing his cool, but man, was he a good wrestler.
Yeah.
And I just like, I was ordering like all of his fights, and I really liked watching him fight. And I'm like, I've done a bit of martial arts, like nothing in the last few years now. And I'm not a wrestler at all. I'm like a stand-up guy, but watching him wrestle was just, he was like watching a little monkey, watching a spider crawl around the mat. He was amazing. He was so fast and just amazing wrestler.
So you didn't keep up with Khamzat Chimaev at all?
No.
No? Because he's like the next touted.
Is he?
Yeah, he's touted as better because he just fought Gilbert Burns last week, and he had fought 4 guys previous to that and only been punched twice. Wow. And they were non-significant strikes. And so then he fought Gilbert, and it was a 3-round war.
Wow.
And it was really good, but he's kind of touted as, like, Islam Makhachev is kind of touted as, like, Khabib's younger prodigy. But Khamzat is, like, interesting because he does it all. He's expert wrestler. He's loved by people like Alexander Gustafsson, and, like, well-respected. And then he's got the striking. Like, he knocked one guy down with one punch, and it was out. Wow. And it was like, we just watched him last weekend, and he's a very interesting cat because he kind of came out of nowhere, and he's considered like potentially the next Conor because he's won all the fights. He just beat the number 2. Now it's Kamaru Usman. If he wins that fight, he's the champ. And then he wants to go after welterweight and middleweight. And so like, I'm very interested to see where he takes it. I love the UFC because I find them so inspirational. Mm-hmm. And like, it's the highest dose of inspiration that you can get because they're literally going out there and they're risking their body, their health, their mental health. And like, if you watch the thrill and the agonies after, they go through like what it feels like to lose. Mm-hmm. And it's like the biggest loss of your life because it's in front of everyone. And you have this like intense sorrow of like, nothing was worth it. And for people like Dan Hooker, he was away from his family due to COVID. He had to go over to the US, fight, and then he lost. He had to spend like 4 weeks in quarantine by himself with that loss. Like, I can't even imagine. And so, like, my respect for what they do is like, there's not much higher than my respect for those individuals.
Yeah. Well, and they step in there. Like, I know they train kind of like as a team, but then you step in there and you're on your own. Like, it's you and one other dude or one other girl. Like, you're by yourself out there. And it's another one of those things where you'll step in there and the world's going to criticize everything you do in there, having never stepped in by themselves. Like, just to step in the ring is a win in itself.
Yeah,
like,
because you've
having
done
the
a
guts
lot.
to do that. Yeah. That's those guys they're absolutely crazy. Well, like, crazy in a good way. Like, they put so much work into it, and then they have so much guts just to step in the ring and face another equally scary individual.
Absolutely. And you think of people like Conor McGregor, who kind of pioneered it. We were drinking Proper 12. And you think of like the willingness to continue to fight despite having enormous amounts of wealth, to like set up for life, still wants to do it because he still wants that respect in the field that he developed himself in.
But he's someone that came from absolutely nothing too. He was homeless at one point, I understand.
Yeah.
Like, unreal. And for him, like, I'm not not the biggest fan of just his antics and stuff, but like, just watching him fight and continue to want to go out there and fight. Like, there's like in martial arts, there's this trend of once you're at the top, you kind of want to pull away from that because you don't want someone to knock you off the top.
Yeah.
Connor seems like someone who will fight anyone any day. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You name it. I'll like, he just wants to fight, and I like that about him.
Yeah, and I think that that's the challenge that someone like Khabib faces now, is that he doesn't have that same, like, people are like, well, what if he had have faced someone like Charles Oliveira, who's the new champ of the 155-pound division? There's questions left, and those questions will only grow over time, where Conor's still in there, and win or lose, it's brave to step in there because you don't have to. And that feeling of not, like, it's tough to know how much, when you're trying to climb to the top, is lost once you're at the top, and once you've made all the money, and once you could retire, whether or not, like, there's that old saying of like, living in silk sheets, can you really be able to get out of bed the same way you did when you were like on the pavement sleeping on the ground? Like, is that motivation still there? And that's a really interesting thought experiment, even to apply to your own life.
Well, I think the difference there is just that Connor just has the love of the game.
Yeah.
Like, I bet you he's always there at some capacity, whether he's like an old man commentating, or I bet you he'll always be around it in some form. And I think even Dana White has said that Connor was the guy that he could be like, hey, I need you to fight this guy. Hey, I need you to fight this guy. And he doesn't care. He's just happy to be there.
Yeah.
Whereas Khabib was, I would say he was probably, at least when he was fighting, was the best wrestler out there. Yeah. Made it to the top and then played it safe and was like, no, I'm out.
Yeah.
And maybe he comes back. Maybe that's a play too, because that has worked before. He can make big bucks leaving and then coming back.
Absolutely. So what would you say your game is? What is your love of the game? Is it communicating ideas? Is it communicating heritage? Is it like, what aspect? Like, because you're doing leather work, but you said that could have gone to, if you could have, that would have gone into like glass blowing. That could have gone into different worlds. So what would you say, like, the hallmark of like, I don't want to lose this. I love this part of it, and I want to continue that, whatever it looks like. It sounds like it could be YouTube. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think it's almost more just making something. I would have said leather before I started YouTube, and then I started making YouTube videos, and now I really like that. But looking back, there was the interest in like making blades and stuff like that too. So I think I just was like looking for a way to make something by hand or make something myself, and just not just be a consumer, kind of.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I like making the videos themselves. Like, they could be about absolutely anything. Like, I'm planning on making a YouTube channel that's just me doing stuff that I like to do. Whether it takes off or not, I don't know.
Tell us about that.
Like, well, my wife laughs and jokes that I'm kind of the man of 1,000 hobbies, where I just try everything. It's like a hobby to collect hobbies for me. So I did jump on the like sourdough bandwagon at the start of the pandemic as well, because I had time off. Or
So sourdough, that's the one where you need like something to put, like a yeast.
yeah,
You need something
you
living.
have to make this like sourdough starter, and it's like yeast and bacteria, and so I wasn't good at it. I do have some. I'm doing my second attempt at it now, but I've never made a good sourdough.
Right.
But there's that. I bought a pizza oven. I make pizza at home now. That's something I like to do. That I am good at. I made some really good pizzas. Me and my brother are working on, so I have a 3D printer. We're making replica proton packs from the Ghostbusters. We've almost finished printing out one of them. I just like making things.
Yeah.
I recently decided I wanted to learn to cut my own hair. I don't want to pay for someone to cut my hair anymore. So this is my first haircut.
It looks really good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just like doing things myself, and I will pretty much try anything. I really like to cook, so I'm at the point where I make a lot of stuff myself. Like, I don't buy mayonnaise. I like to make mayonnaise. I make butter.
You make your own mayonnaise.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's easy. It's like easier than anyone would realize.
Is it easier than buying mayonnaise?
I could... if you had to go buy mayonnaise now and I had to make it right here, it would be made by the time you got back, like before you got back.
No way.
Yeah, easily.
What do you need for mayonnaise?
Some acid, which is like either lemon juice or vinegar,
right?
An egg, a cup of oil, some seasonings.
Interesting.
A blender. It's super easy.
And so do you feel like you have this great place, but you remind me of a person who would want to live like more up in the woods, like just based on like what you're describing to me is a person who's like a little more off the grid, not like 100% off the grid, but a person who's like happy to have like more of a disconnect. Does that sound accurate?
I would like it for some amount of time, but I like my technology too.
Yeah.
So that's probably another benefit of Chilliwack, is it's kind of halfway between. Right. I can be in Vancouver in an hour and a quarter.
Yeah.
Or I can be completely in the middle of nowhere, going an hour in the other direction.
Yeah.
Like, I'm lucky in that my folks bought a cabin up north by Lone Butte last year.
I don't even know where that is.
Oh, it's, I want to say like 100 Mile area. Kind of way out northeast from here,
right? And
that's pretty nice, but even then, it's pretty like glamorous cabin like spot. Like, there's still like cell reception and stuff like that. Right. I don't think I would go off the grid for too long. I like that stuff.
Yeah, and can you tell us about that person that you admire who makes? I'm forgetting his name.
Oh, Valid.
Yeah. Oh no, the person that has their own YouTube channel, cigars. Whiskey.
Oh, Jeremy Sears.
There you go.
Did you check out his channel?
I did, of course.
He's pretty good. Hey?
That's what made me think like this might be a good setup.
He's pretty good. So that's kind of what I plan on basing my name YouTube channel on. Is he's into a lot of the same stuff that I'm into, and he just likes making videos. I think he started as a photographer, kind of Peter McKinnon-esque, but yeah, he's just drinks whiskey, makes coffee, smokes cigars, does a bunch of things, and just started making YouTube videos about doing those things. I think in his like about section, he says I make videos on what I like to do. Yeah. And that's what I want to do. So my plan for that is, just to make videos almost, I guess, vlog style kind of thing of me just doing things, kind of maybe like an underlying how to do this message in a longer, this is me being me video kind of thing. It's still evolving.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's unique because I'm in the interview sphere. Like when I wrote a paper on like the different avenues for podcasts and YouTube, and like interviews are second to how-tos and personalities and just sharing your own journey. And so it's interesting to hear the differences between what I'm doing and yours, in that yours is going to be just you. And you're going to be sharing like what you're interested in and developing a community based on that.
Yeah. And kind of my idea for that is to sort of pull me out of my comfort zone too. Like, like I said, I have issues being like excitable on camera, and that was kind of forced me to be on camera more and be more entertaining, like doing a personality based channel.
Yeah.
So I don't know how it'll go. I have 2 videos filmed. I have one uploaded that I am sitting on and haven't hit publish on yet. It's just kind of sitting there like an intro thing. And then I did one of like the first time, like me cutting my hair for the first time, which is super nerve-wracking.
Oh, interesting. You recorded that?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Just by yourself downstairs.
Yeah. I just like went in the bathroom and I like hung my camera on the towel rack and cut my own hair. It was super sketchy.
It turned out fine.
There's a few spots, but it's not so bad.
I don't think anybody's gonna notice.
But it's like, I don't know. It was one of those things. I was just thinking, well, I go pay a guy $50 to cut my hair.
You pay $50 to get your haircut?
Well, like 30. It's like $30, 35 plus.
You're going to a fancy place.
Tax,
Do they have
and then
TVs?
he does my beard too.
Oh, okay.
So like, yeah, with like a decent haircut and a beard trim and tax and tip, it's about $50. It's somewhere between 40 and 50.
Right.
But that's every time. And then I was like, well, actually read it again. There's a community on Reddit called Self Barber. I went on there and I went to like a barber subreddit and I went to the Self Barber one, and there's people doing like amazing haircuts on themselves. And I was like, why am I paying $50 for this? I'm no male model. I don't need someone to like do my hair for me. Like I need to basically know how to do my hair and cut my beard. So I was like, oh, I'll give it a shot. And I like looked up a decent clipper to buy and bought it. And
was your aesthetic planned? Because you have like the market that you're going after, you have the good aesthetic for. Like you have this really thick, strong beard.
Thank you. I guess, well, I've had the beard for a couple of years now, so I don't think so. I think it's just like kind of like doing that kind of like leather heritagey stuff is an interest of mine, but it's probably a look that just kind of plays into my interests as well. Yeah,
because the videos just look perfect because you look like the correct person to be doing the videos. Like it's perfectly synergistic.
I feel like it's probably like someone who has an interest in this might have an interest in this. Like, I feel like they probably just go together by chance.
Right.
It wasn't like grow the beard because I make leather kind of thing.
No, yeah. Like, I definitely don't think that you did the beard just for that. Yeah. It's just, it comes so naturally. Like, it looks so appropriate.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. I know a ton of leather workers now because I talk to a ton of people, but a lot of them are like just big dudes with beards.
Yeah, like hard-working individuals. Yeah. I think that's I think that's important that we have individuals like yourself to turn to and like learn different things from, because I think that your willingness, like your mindset that you're sharing with people is like a willingness to learn. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's like that open-mindedness to like, maybe there's something here and I'm going to go check it out. And that development over time is so, we have everything we need now. Yeah. It's now just about figuring out what you want to do. Yeah. Like we talk about like, where is like, is things affordable? Are things this? But it's like, there's no excuses on the table of like, I don't know a person in finance, so I can't learn about finance. Mm-hmm. I don't have a next door neighbor who's a lawyer, so I can't learn about the law. It's like the knowledge is there. You just have to go sit down and watch the videos and start to understand where to go read the books and start to put things together in order to develop yourself. And you are a prime example of that willingness to be like, I'm going to learn about this, then I'm going to learn about that. And that culture of lifelong learning, I think, is becoming more commonplace, but it's so important that people take it seriously and start to look for like, what am I interested in? Let's go watch some videos. What do I like about what they do? Figuring out like, I started a Substack account and it was like, I don't consider myself a writer. I love conversations, but I'm going to develop myself in this new way that maybe is a little uncomfortable for me because it's not my normal medium, to see what's in this medium that I'm not getting from this medium. And so that open-mindedness of like, I'm going to do leather work. Now I'm going to start a YouTube channel. Now I'm going to learn about how YouTube works. Now I'm going to try something else with YouTube. It's like you're seeing the evolution of yourself over this journey. And I think that that's crazy motivational for people to figure out what they're interested in and then follow that same sort of trajectory.
Yeah. And that's about like investing. Like what if you find something you are interested in, investing your time into it too. Like, I mean, you can always pull back if you're like, oh, that's not for me, whatever. But like you had said earlier, you can't learn everything from YouTube, but it's a good place to start. And like for me, leather, I started there. Then I started interacting with the leatherworking community on Instagram, and then I found a mentor that was nearby who, you know, Skyped with me or whatever, like video chatted with me and taught me stuff.
What did that mean to you?
Lots. He still helps me all the time. It's insane. Like I drop by his house and he's like, oh, I have this for you. I have this for you. You do this. Like, it's insane. He's amazing.
Does that surprise you that like people are that open? That they're that? Did that surprise you at all?
It did at first, yeah, for sure. And then like getting to know him, he's just kind of that guy. But then getting to know a lot of like the leather workers, it's a really supportive community. And I'm not really in a bunch of like creator spaces other than that community, but I would imagine they got to be the same. Yeah. I think like woodworkers and all that are pretty supportive of each other. Right. Like my old man's a wood turner and he's in a group and they're super supportive of each other and showing each other ideas. So I think creators like to play off each other.
Yeah, it's something I've tried to encourage in the podcast space is like, I think there's an instinct for people to think you're in this space too, therefore you're my competition. Yeah. But in my mind, it's like, no, because if you're bringing people to the podcast space, if people are listening to you, that's just bringing up the amount of people listening. And like I've talked about this a few times, but the average like reading ability in Canada is like something like a C out of like A, B, C. And so it's not great. And so podcasts, audiobooks, these are more YouTube videos. These are more accessible for so many people who don't have good literacy skills. So I think more people in this space making podcasts more commonplace is not hurting anyone. But there's that initial mindset to be like, oh, you're going to take my listeners. And it's like the odds that they can listen to this and your video are like super high.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know the literacy rate was that low.
Yeah, it's not great. It's from my understanding, it's mainly because we have the oil fields and we have such natural resources that there's such an advantage in grades 10, 11, and 12 to drop out of school to go work in the oil fields, to go work in the lumber industry because it's money today.
Interesting.
Versus a 4-year degree, and then you've got your education and like, what is that worth? What work do you want to do? And so the motivation to drop out or stop school earlier to go work in the oil fields is so advantageous for people that they choose that over.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I like to think my literacy rate's higher than that, but I don't read at all. So I listen to a ton of podcasts.
Yeah, I think it's a reliable way forward, and I think it makes like truck drivers are one of the biggest consumers of podcasts.
That makes sense.
We've been over the course of history so judgmental of people doing those honest, hard jobs. And even more recently, we've been kind of demeaning to the work of truckers and trying to say this part of truckers is good and this part of truckers, they're the not intelligent people. And it's like most of these people listen to audiobooks, podcasts. They're educating themselves. And that was something for me where I didn't think I was intelligent when I was going through high school. Then I'm listening to neuroscientist Andrew Huberman breaking down like the brain and how it works. And it's like, oh, maybe I'm not stupid. Maybe maybe there's something in this brain that's actually of use. And so I think that they allow you to realize like, maybe I am interested in neuroscience. Maybe I'm allowed to be interested in these things, even if I don't have a degree in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What does Huberman call them? Aficionados?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
I like to think I'm an aficionado of it, but like half of what he says is over my head. And he's dumbing it down, which is bad too.
Yeah, but it's so cool when people do that and they choose to share it, because then you go like, wow, there's so much of the world that I didn't know, and this is what an expert looks like. And an expert doesn't have to be someone in a white lab coat saying, you're dumb, listen to me, I've got the pill for you. He's breaking these complex things down and not assuming you're not smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, and he shows like an expert, like the difference between someone who can look up information online and then regurgitate it versus someone who like knows the material. Because he can sit there and cite names and studies and like the names of everything that he's saying, whereas some keyboard warrior trying to refute you online is going to be on Wikipedia and copy pasting stuff. Like you can't learn everything online. It's just a good starting point maybe to gauge your interest.
Yeah, that was the interesting thing I learned about oral cultures in indigenous communities, is that like we didn't have things written down, so it was all based on memory. So a lot of our stories are the mixture of moral stories and geographic locations. And the mixture of the two allow you both to learn how to live a meaningful life, but also tell you where you are in the area. Like La Chiam means where wild strawberries grow, and at the base of Chiam is a wild strawberry patch.
That's interesting.
And so there's a mixture of the two that give you an idea of where you are. And then there's a story of Chiam being like a lady who was turned to stone, and that she's looking over all of us. And that's why Chiam is such a tall mountain, is so they can look over all of Sol Tamiu, which is the Fraser Valley. And so like there's a mixture of the two. There's a story of like the cedar tree. I love cedar. Like if I was going to get into something, it'd probably be woodwork, because I think like that image beside you, I thought it was so crazy that somebody made that up in Boston Bar. Yeah. And so the story of the cedar tree is that there was a really good man who always gave back to his community, who was turned into a cedar tree so he could continue to give back to the community. And Stolo people have used cedar trees for a very long time. And I didn't know this, but cedar trees are actually predominantly only located in the lower mainland of British Columbia. They're not really located across Canada or across the US. They're mainly here. And so they'd use other trees that were subpar. And so when they'd have hats or clothing, they were not as good as cedar. And so cedar is considered like top tier. And that story of like the man I would compare to like a Jesus figure. This person who always gave back, turned to a cedar tree, helps us live high quality lives, and improved all of the equipment that we use.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Is that from like the trading post thing up in Boston Bar there, or from someone that you know? Or?
Just somebody that we were working with.
That's super cool.
Yeah. Tim, I really appreciate you being willing to come on. I cannot be more proud of this. I will be definitely repping this really cool business card holder / I'm going to definitely use it as a wallet.
I'm glad you like it,
in the future. Can you tell people how they can connect with you on social media, on YouTube, Instagram?
Yeah, for sure. Probably if you want to reach out to me, you can go to my website, blackflagleathergoods.com, and there's an email form there. Or you can send me a message at blackflagleather on Instagram. I do get back to everyone eventually, but I'm getting like more and more messages. It sometimes takes me a few days. You can watch me on Black Flag Leather Goods on YouTube, as well as I'm starting a Tim Srigley on YouTube. Exists. I have 24 followers already, actually. That's pretty good.
That is really good.
I don't have anything yet. No. And then I'm also starting a website called howtoleatherwork.com, which is a work in progress, so there's not much there yet. Hopefully it grows into like just a course of how to leatherwork.
That's amazing. And we just did over 3 hours.
Did we really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. They flew by.
Yeah, absolutely. And a great conversation. I hope that we can do this in the future, because I think I enjoy being more casual. Sometimes I put on the interview hat and I get serious. And I want this to be something where people can tune in and have like a more enjoyable, relaxed conversation. And so I hope that that's what listeners got out of this. It's certainly how I felt, which was more just having a really good conversation.
It was super comfortable. I was nervous coming in, and that 3 hours just flew by.
That's great to hear.
I would definitely come back.
Perfect. Well, we'll try and make this a reoccurring thing, because I think there's a lot to learn from people like yourself, and maybe there'll be questions in the future, and we can collaborate on that.
Yeah, I would love to.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, man.